It's funny. I was here yesterday, and I just finished up in here for the day, and I wanted to have a cigarette because I had cigarettes in my bag, and I was like, it'd be really nice to have a beer and a cigarette right now. But I realized I didn't have a lighter. So I was sort of wandering around, like figuring out what I could start a fire with in the studio, or at least just get hot enough that I could light a cigarette off it. And then I realized it didn't have a beer in the fridge. So I opened the fridge, and there was no beer in it. I was like, "Fuck, okay, so this is obviously not meant to be." And then I was like, "Oh, well, I've got a soldering iron, so I could maybe heat that up and light it off that." And then like I turned it on to light it up, and I was like, "Oh fuck," because there was still solder on the end of it. So I was like, I probably shouldn't fucking like
fucking
inhale like lead or whatever the fuck it is. So I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Home Audio Entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down, relax, enjoy the music.
Okay, man, your turn.
Lots of people are sick at the moment. It's going around.
It is going around.
Yeah, I'm just sick in the head. I'm not body sick anymore.
What is it?
My physical ailments have gone, but my mental ailments are
they're
burdening me. They're still around. Yeah.
No, it's awkward times now with COVID and everything. To feel like you're like any symptom that you have now, there's sort of an immediate association to that.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time that I cough or splutter or sniff or I'm in public places, just anything of that nature, you just sort of think like, oh, I should probably either not be here or I should be like, fuck, I should get tested.
It happened to me in a lecture the other day, actually. I was just like, I had got up quite quickly before it and then had a coffee, and it just ruined my throat, just destroyed my throat. And I was in this, this lecture / tutorial where they were explaining like the parts of this assignment, and just every fucking like second or third minute I'm just going no, like not that grossly, because it's hard to imitate, but it's just really irritating. And I'm doing like I'm doing this thing where like I end up shaking my head just at myself, like so that others can see that I'm irritated about the fact that I'm coughing.
I know.
Yeah, basically I'm just going like this, like, so other people are like not looking behind me, just hoping that people see it, just oh, he's frustrated about it. Like it's obviously not, it's not something that happens all the time.
I don't know, it's so weird because I feel guilty about doing it, but then like people will come into work or just like in the same store that you're in, and they'll just like cough like right onto you, and it's like
people cough on you,
not onto me, but they're not aware of the circumstances, I suppose, or like don't have that sort of awareness that we're talking about now.
Yeah,
that's tricky. But like it's still gross regardless. It's kind of weird how it's actually kind of like not a blessing, but like the fact that we've gone through this now, and like people are more aware of just general like public hygiene as well, which has kind of been good for the most part. But there's still people that just don't fucking like give a shit. Yeah,
but that's because we haven't really gone. We went through it, but we didn't go through it in a sense where like the majority of people our age that are conscious about the whole COVID effort and what's happened to the world are generally going to be, kind of receptive to being more respectful about your own health or whatever, hygiene at the moment.
Yeah.
But we didn't go through like a SARS or like a, MERS or something really gnarly that made those other, especially, like Asiatic cultures like China and Taiwan and Japan, like enforce those as like a cultural norm, like they actually had stuff happen to them in the last 20, 30 years where they're like, it's not acceptable to, like wearing masks was not an issue because gnarly stuff had happened in the past where that had become a cultural norm.
How do we compare, like in New Zealand, in comparison to? Sorry, that sounded really weird. How do we compare to like Asian countries in terms of like how we're run, like and in terms of the general like acceptance of what like the government sort of puts forward and what is sort of expected of you as a citizen under a government regulation? Like, how is that sort of like?
It's kind of broad, I guess. It kind of depends on where you are.
Like is there sort of a general consensus among people, like, because I guess I'm specifically thinking of like America, like there's generally quite a complex number of people that are either completely for or totally against like what the government is saying in terms of like what is supposed to be done or what should be done to prevent or do something. Like I feel like when I look at Asian countries, they are typically more like there's sort of a general consensus amongst everyone that things are done this way.
It depends though, because some of them are culturally driven. Like places like Taiwan, Korea, Japan, they're democratic countries that are more culturally driven, you could say, in terms of their regard for other people's health and their own health and society's health. Whereas, say, somewhere like China, they are also very conscious about it, but that's also because they have a government that would be very forceful if there was to be a group of people that were to come out and say, no, the government is wrong. It's my, say you were to take the argument from the United States and be like, it's my right not to wear this mask. You wouldn't have a group of people supporting you in the same way in China that you would in the United States because of fear of repercussion or fear of, I don't know, fear of going against the cultural norm. Whereas in the United States, they have a culture of going against a cultural norm is like, that's their cultural norm. Like that's what makes them
being
the United
free,
States.
loving American is to be, your own person.
You can make millions of dollars out of literally just being some dude who's like, the government's lying to you. Fucking don't wear your mask. Yeah. It's all bullshit. And meanwhile, they're like the first dudes to line up and get vaccinated. And
exactly.
Like literally, those people are the first ones to get vaccinated, so that they can travel everywhere, so they can keep spreading their bullshit about not getting vaccinated.
You're gonna get vaccinated?
I've been hit up about getting vaccinated. I think I will. Yeah, I think it's more of a timing. It's more of like a. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because like it's not something that I'm like avoiding. It's just something that I don't know. I guess because we're all in this sort of haze of privilege of not having to be vaccinated.
Well, I haven't seen much of a sort of an announcement, I suppose, as to when, because there were like four tiers.
Your GP should contact you.
Right.
That's who contacted me anyway. Was the app service, My Health, whatever it is, from my GP, and they just.
We are at the point now where you and I are able to get vaccinated now.
Oh yeah, we've been able to do that for months.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's been like that for ages. It's just that the people over the 65 and people with pre-existing conditions were selected first because
that makes sense
because of obvious reasons. Whereas I think, but we probably still could have actually gone in and gotten vaccinated.
Yeah. I find this sort of a scary subject, to be honest, because this is something I want to talk about, and I feel like it should be something that's talked about. But like initially, my thought is like, yes, I will get vaccinated. Obviously, like if it's plausible, if it's regulated and it's approved, and it's safe for the most part, then I'm on board, and it's going to do good for the nature of this coronavirus, and I'm on board. But there's so many. It does seem like it's a really heavy there's definitely like two sides to this argument about getting the vaccine, and I've seen a lot of stuff on social media that like is presented in a certain way. Like I came across this post today that was like, it was posted by CNN. So number one, I don't really know what to do with information that comes from that source. It's not a source that I sort of absorb in New Zealand, really. It's not really anything to do with us or what we see. But it was like 5 reasons why you should get vaccinated, basically, or like why any sort of stigma around not getting vaccinated is ridiculous. And like just the language that they were using within that post was really sort of off-putting. Like I was generally on board with the points that were put forward, but the way it was spoken was really sort of
it's always going to be like, it's always going to kind of be like that, though. It's going to be, in terms of science communication, whenever you're trying to get a broad message out to people, it's going to be emoteless and it's going to be concise. It's always going to be the two things that you require to get broad amounts of information, because the concept, like you say, is super broad. Like it has a whole bunch of elements to it. But if you actually want people to take up what you're saying, you have to be direct, and you have to be like, these are the reasons why you should get this vaccine. That's it. The discussion, the realm for discussion is for yourself and for others. It's not for the science communication provider, because if you don't do that, then you run the risk of not being forceful enough, which is kind of what's happening, seems to be happening in New Zealand and Australia. There's bugger all people in New Zealand who've got vaccinated that can get vaccinated. It's one of the lowest in the world in terms of in terms of the actual availability of vaccines to people getting vaccinated.
Well, there was a whole thing about like another shipment that was supposed to arrive or something. Did you see that? Like there was supposed to be a huge shipment that was supposed to arrive like a month ago, and it was delayed or something. And when it finally arrived, it was sort of next to nothing. Like we have been pretty low on supplies.
I'd say that. Yeah, I don't know why specifically that one was, but there's probably a whole bunch of the vaccines that come from overseas that have to be thrown out as soon as they arrive here, because they have to be under the exact right conditions to be stored. And if anything happens in transit, you can't run it's not one of those things you could be like, maybe these things were exposed to temperatures that shouldn't have, maybe they'll work. You just fully can't do that at all. So that's probably why a lot of those delays happen as well. And the different vaccines have different as I understand them, they have different incubation points and they have different temperature needs, and they only last X amount of time once they're taking out of their storage. But look, personally, I think there's 3 really simple reasons why I would get the vaccine. 1, I want to travel. 2, if you're worried about this sort of concept of being monitored, it happened so long ago, it's not funny. Like, it literally happened so long ago, you know.
What are you talking about specifically?
Well, people saying, you know, like the kind of adage that people are going where like, oh, you know, we don't want to get, you know, the crackpot theory. It's like, you know, we don't want to get vaccinated because it's going to contain a chip that's going to be like data mining us or determining us to consume XXX, whatever. But your fucking phones are doing that already,
right?
Like subconsciously and at a way more powerful level. They don't need to internally control you. They're already externally controlling people.
Yeah.
Like
it seems absurd to even sort of come to the conclusion that there would be some technological, like something that's invisible, essentially, that can be like injected into your bloodstream.
For sure, but that's a hallmark, isn't it, of like all sort of conspiracy theories that have a tinge of mental instability about them in terms of their supporter base. Like, I'm not saying that everybody that's anti-vax is mentally unstable, and they have a lot of people do have a lot of valid concerns, and, you know, don't begrudge those people from looking into it and making that decision. Excuse me. But, you know, I think a lot of people have been concerned in terms of they've been like, you know, this pandemic hit us in a year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're rushing to get this vaccine out, which doesn't seem safe, whatever. The speed at which the vaccine has been conjured is therefore supports the fact that it's dangerous or whatever. But that's the whole essence of any sort of vaccine, is that you're scientifically, the speed at which you're trying to research the cure for anything is always at the utmost. Like, that's the whole point. You know, you're trying to make it as fast as possible because if it's affecting your population, you need to make it quickly. You need to find what works and create a shitload of it and, in essence, try it. Like, the only way that they're ever going to find out if it works is if they clinically trial it like they have and then start vaccinating people. Like, I think lots of people have been like, you know, it took X amount of years to create a polio vaccine, even though polio was fucking humans up for ages and stuff like that. But, like, that's a testimony for getting it, in my opinion. It's like, well, yeah, I find it interesting that people are concerned about the speed with which it's been created, because it literally closed the world down. It was the comparison to like a Great Depression, essentially, right? And every scientist and every researcher that isn't dedicated to specific fields of research was being rerouted to create as many opportunities to create a vaccine for this particular cause, because it closed down, it shut the fucking world down, you know? So whoever created it and whatever teams of people created it in these Pfizer labs or Johnson & Johnson, whatever, they would have been under the pump. They would have been so under the pump, you know?
I do find it pretty insane, like the initial fact that something had been produced at such a rapid speed, at least in comparison to like other vaccines that have been produced historically. Not only just that one company's come up with that, but that there's like, what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, but they'd be sharing research between each other.
Right, they'd be pushing that onto each other.
Yeah,
well,
I don't know if they'd be pushing it onto each other, but there definitely would have been a monetary, there'd be a monetary, what's the word? Stimulus, or like a monetary imperative for them to share the information to create as many versions of a vaccine as possible. Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, you could try to corner the market, but
like a UN sort of thing.
Nah, not a UN. Like on a corporate level, like all of these companies, they all control different supply chain management. They all control thousands of offshoots of other companies, and in all of those thousands of offshoots, there's intermingling between employees and like knowledge bases, right? Like, it's impossible to prevent one person from one company interacting with another person in one company when they all work in the same place, like New York City, Berlin, London, etc. It's just natural that they, you know, it's the same as like people who work for different accounting firms. They know about each other. They know about the other accounting firm. They know who their clients are. They know all that information. They're going to know all that information on a corporate level, like the board of directors of all those businesses. They would have met up and been like, look, either one of us takes years and manages to find this vaccine and creates a monopoly and becomes supremely rich or supremely powerful, right? But that could be 10 years from now. Or we share the information, we share and pool resources, and we all benefit from it and we benefit from it in a year rather than 10 years, for just one person. I'm sure that would have been conversations that would have been had between.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense
people.
that there would have been some sort of communication to have that many pop up at sort of the same time.
They-
That was kind of like, it was like you have a choice for vaccine.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And the political influence of those companies is the same as their corporate influence. That's the whole problem with like one of the whole problems of global politics, right? Is that politics and business aren't separated at all by anything. They're one and the same essentially. That's why there's so many, people without food and housing, because the people at the top are politicians, but they're just businessmen with a different name. Like, yeah, and that's, I don't know. But to answer the question, I will get vaccinated. And I'm personally not afraid. I mean, I had a whole bunch of vaccines when I was before I developed consciousness that like I had no choice over / you had to. I believe in science, basically. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And
I do too. I would confidently say that I do too. But I'm definitely like I guess I'm just open-minded, if I can put that label on myself, as to getting as much information as I can receive, and I'm open to hearing sort of arguments from both sides. I think that's the best way to really learn about anything is to look at arguments from either or and see why they're valid or why they're not valid.
Yeah.
And a lot of the arguments that I'm seeing from the side that is for the vaccine is like, okay, yes, like
it's been clinically trialed, and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
have
yeah.
it in the survival.
yeah, and you are doing good by doing,
And like 99% of the people who die from COVID are currently unvaccinated.
Yeah. And so I see that and I go, okay, yes, it seems in my way of thinking and the way that I've brought up and the way that I typically view these sorts of arguments is yes, like the vaccine is something that is good and I'm going to get and to give an answer here, I probably will be getting the vaccine myself. But at the moment, I'm getting a lot of information from the other side, and through this post that I referred to earlier about why you should be getting the vaccine. And it's probably a toxic environment to really sort of get this information because Joe Blogs can make a comment on anything at any time. But I'm reading through these comments and almost 100% of the comments are anti this post, which
for
is
sure.
pro-vaccine. And I'm going, okay, I'm not going, oh, okay, so there's a general consensus that we shouldn't, so I shouldn't. That's not my way of thinking.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is like, I'm looking at the specifics of what people are saying within this argument and going, okay, why are they saying this? How valid is the source that I am reading? Which it isn't at all, but there's obviously like talk amongst these points that people are making towards this that are going, my body, my choice. And like, that just rings true to me because like when I look at something like, just to take it a bit deeper, is to look at something like abortion. Like I'm someone that's pro-choice, so I have that mentality when it comes to that argument.
But
does that translate to a vaccine?
That's the thing, is it doesn't tend to these two issues don't this shows you the polarity between thought and action. Like majority of the people, I don't want to say majority of people, a lot of people that are anti-vaccine would be anti-abortion,
Right.
Because conservatism and contrarianism are driving a lot of that. A lot of echo chamber information from Facebook derives from contrarianism, which has existed since the internet has existed, because it's an outlet for people to vent,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's a misconception between some people that the your body, my choice sort of concept extends to the vaccination concept when it doesn't really extend to that. It's sort of they seem like they're related, but they're not. It's almost shadowing the actual viewpoints of a lot of people, like the people who tend to be, well, not to label, people tend to be Christian and right wing and conservative and more closed-minded, people that would be anti the decisions of others about their own choice on their body, or the liberalization of drug use, or transgender rights, or civil rights, social justice. A lot of the people that's one of the big issues that's creating this divide between people, is because each side thinks the other side is being hypocritical. People who are more liberal that might be saying, I'm going to get the vaccine because it's a societal decision that I'm making for other people. And I also believe that the decision to abort a child is a societal decision that other people are allowed to make. see hypocrisy in the other side of the aisle where people are going, I don't want to take this vaccine because it's my body. But one of the biggest problems with that whole argument has been from the start is that it's not even really about your own decision to take the vaccine. Like, the vaccine's not going to work in any sort of vacuum or society unless a threshold of people have it, because the decision for you not to get vaccinated might not affect you, but it can affect other people around you if you become a carrier of a variant or an unconscious. That's what was one of the biggest problems, was that you could be asymptomatic with this. You could get it, not realize you had it, and pass it over to somebody else.
The carrier argument still goes both ways. Someone that's vaccinated can still carry it.
Yeah,
that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
I think
think
so.
about it. Someone that has coronavirus sneezes on someone's sleeve that is vaccinated. Like, the virus is present on that person and can be transferred to someone.
For sure. But that would be transferred. That would be a higher likelihood of being transferred to somebody who wasn't vaccinated than somebody who was. By being vaccinated, it's like wearing a full body condom, essentially.
Sure.
It's not guaranteed to work all the time, but it's going to work a lot of the time,
Wait,
right?
condoms don't work the whole time?
Especially if you put 3 on them, bro. Big mistake. But no, like don't get 4 vaccines. No. So that's one of the biggest problems in places like Australia, where they keep going into lockdowns. So they have issues with state and federal rights as well, because a lot of people in Australia have a very American mindset where it's like, the Australian concept is that you own this piece of land and you own this concept of personal liberty or whatever. And England's the same way. It's white people. It's British descendant people, to be honest. Like, a lot of the problems, if you took a fuckload of the vaccine and you took it to a place like India or China, where they're getting, well, not necessarily China anymore, but India, where they got flogged by it, you'd be hard pressed to find many people that would be unwilling to take the vaccine if it was an escape out of the conditions they were in. Right. And same with Fiji. This is kind of the lesson that Fiji is learning in the moment, right? Is that they're getting fucked by the coronavirus situation at the moment, and that's not necessarily because people are anti-vaccine in Fiji. It's just because the concept of getting vaccinated and having access to the vaccine wasn't considered, because the so-called era of the lockdown COVID initial hit, the wave, if you want to call it that, which implies something completely different, had passed by them in their mind. Like, and that's the danger that New Zealand is in. It's like, we think that we've gotten past this whole thing, and this Delta variant and a whole bunch of other things that are currently keeping Australians inside their houses. Australia is so close to it. It's unfathomably close to us. Like, and the capability of somebody to come over and just start the whole thing over again is ridiculously easy if people aren't vaccinated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like that scare we had in Wellington recently.
Yeah.
It's funny how complacent we actually are with the coronavirus.
Well,
and then that comes up and everyone shits their pants. Because it's like, oh, I've been to Wellington. I know someone that went to Wellington.
Yeah.
Or, what if they came down here? And we're back to like square one. It's like we haven't actually had the full blown like coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's fucking real.
Then there's no difference. There's no difference between, remember when people went to the 121 festival and but before we went into lockdown, and people were fully shitting themselves like, I've interacted with this person, they might have coronavirus, and then the lockdown happened after that.
Well, my flatmate had been to
exactly.
121, and then I'm living in the same place.
Exactly, right?
Fucking, oof.
So what's the difference between that and a festival that's going to start in 4 months' time?
Exactly.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's no difference behind it, except that the only kind of potential chance that you have against it in any kind of random occurrence is by being vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm not some sort of like enforcer of that. I just personally think that it makes the most sense. Like, it just, it's like these trends. Have you seen any of these trends where people were like claiming that after they took the vaccine that they became magnetic? Yeah. And then people would just go on and be like, rub talcum powder on your skin and then try to. Then, like, there's literally a TikTok I saw where this guy's like, look at this, and he's like sticking the spoon. The spoon's like staying for like 3 seconds and then falls off because he's like humid and wet, right? And someone just posted like, put talcum powder on your skin and try to do it again. And the guy's like, okay, and just like he probably already was like a pro-vacciner. He was probably just playing this anti-vaccinated, but he put the talcum powder on, just didn't work, and he just like turns to yeah, I want to make some apologies. And like, literally, the rest of the TikTok was him just being like, yeah, I was an idiot. Like, this is all stupid. Like, I'm not magnetic. Like,
Wow,
you know,
it's such a crazy like that. That's so interesting to me because I don't really like. I can't really make any sort of like accurate comments on this, but like the strength of anything that can be magnetic, like obviously and surely is reduced significantly to something that is at a microscopic level. To think that you can stick a spoon to your arm from something that has been put into your bloodstream through a needle into your skin is kind of even if there was something and it was magnetic, that's still really
you can't magnetize your cell.
It's just insane.
Yeah, I know.
That's
but that's
crazy.
like it's part of like, you know, it's not new. It's fully not new. There's a guy, he died not long ago. I think he might have been on the Joe Rogan Experience when Joe Rogan was first started. His name is James Tandy. He was in his maybe his late 80s or 90s when he died. But in the 60s and 70s, he was famous as he's like one of them. He's possibly like the top 3, or maybe even the most famous, like skeptic, like guy who would, especially back in the day before the internet, before like, you know, kind of global connection, would go and like prove that all these things that people were claiming were bullshit.
Right.
And there was this guy called Uri Geller, who's still alive, still super rich. He's still super rich. He made a lot of money out of this before he got disproven, and he's probably still making money out of it. This Israeli guy called Uri Geller, who used to go on the Johnny Carson show and do a sort of a magic. It was kind of like he claimed it was magic, but he also claimed that he had powers where he could bend spoons with his mind. Like he claimed that, you know, he could like get Johnny Carson to hold this spoon and he would look at it and the spoon would bend.
Right.
Just stuff like this. And then one time, this guy, James Tandy, went to Johnny Carson, might have been like the early 80s, and was like, I'm going to come on your show and get Uri Geller on your show, and don't tell Uri Geller that I'm coming, and get him to lay out all of his props before the filming. And then just before we start filming, I'll replace the props with other spoons, like just normal spoons that I have. And so he's like, yeah, okay, like, fucking, that's pretty funny. So he gets on the show and like he replaces the spoons, and then he just, you know, James Tandy comes on and kind of like ambushes him. He's like, oh, like demonstrate to everybody how you can bend these spoons. And he does the exact same thing that he'd done on all these other shows, and just nothing's happening. And he's like, oh, it's an off day, like the temperature isn't right in here, like just stuff like that, you know? So stuff like that is like, it's been around, it's a snake oil salesman thing, you know? Like,
yeah, sure.
So people will literally see humanity right to its destruction if it means that they can be on top of other people while it happens, you know? Like, fuck. Some people,
so interesting.
some people will
That's
just,
so true.
especially in the United States,
Yeah.
like it's a cultural melting pot of letting people rise. It's just a class. It's the class warfare structure, like
Yeah.
to the max.
Yeah.
Dudes like Alex Jones and stuff like that, you know, like
I never really dive too much into that
Don't.
sort of ethos.
fully don't even. I'm not even going to discuss Alex Jones stuff here because it's a waste of time. Like,
To be honest, man, like I'm not going to get into this, but like there's a huge population of the Joe Rogan fan base that just want to hit Alex Jones constantly.
100% there is.
and it's strong enough that like it's been one of the most popular episodes that he's ever had. And so that was enough to intrigue me to listen to an episode and
Of Alex
like,
Jones's show.
No, of the
him on
episodes
Alex Jones.
that Alex Jones is on Joe Rogan. And 10 minutes in, I'm not even sure what we're talking about anymore. That's that. It's not a matter of
That's
like
what he does.
opinion or this is what I do or don't. It's like I don't even know what we're talking about at this stage.
Yeah.
What is this discussion about?
Yeah.
I'm quite literally tuned out to the whole conversation because
Yeah.
what am I listening to? Like, what are we actually talking about? It's too deep and it's too like. I just get lost anyway.
But that's what he
regardless of if I
does.
want to.
That's what he does. Is he like? That's the whole structure of his. You know, I'll talk about it briefly. I won't get into it too much because I don't want to talk about it. He's like an idiot. But the whole structure of how he's done it in the first place, right, is that you just bombard your audience with just bam, 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 bam. Even the way he talks, he's like, you know, the globalists are trying to take over. You know, the globalists are trying to take over your. They want to run your lives. You know, interdimensional vampires. You've got it backwards, bro.
Fuck. Oh, Christ.
Ken just lit a cigarette backwards.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that sucks, man. You should cut it if
I
you
don't
can.
even fucking.
Happens. It happens. It's not the first time I've seen it happen.
That's so That's that, and that lit too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's an awful
Shit.
smell, eh?
That's so funny.
You should just cut the end off
I'm
of
gonna
it.
do that. I'm just gonna grab some scissors.
All
That's
right.
so funny.
Should I entertain the public? Yeah, this is probably all going to be edited out by Kieran anyway. But you know what, I'll just I'll keep talking. I'm going to tell the listeners about some potential goings on in Dunedin. How about that?
What?
Oh, I'm going to go to on I believe it's August the 11th. I'm going to go to, I think the Critic and Radio 1 are hosting it in the new music studios at the university. Night Lunch, Dale Kerrigan and Porpoise, the members of Porpoise who were on your podcast before. They're doing like I think the concept is that they're creating music like on the spot, like they're going to record music in front of an audience. I think maybe 30 to 35 tickets.
At Radio 1.
Nah, at the university in the new music studio that they have there.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it only came out tonight, I'm pretty sure,
right.
as of today, which is the 22nd of July.
Yeah, it is too.
I think it's on the 11th of August, listeners. $32.50 I paid for my ticket, which is...
Oh, that's actually fair.
I mean, it's 3 bands, and you're seeing a live experience, and you're going to see something that you haven't really seen before, I'm assuming.
I hear the price and I immediately react. I
Yeah.
didn't take into account the show itself.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, anything over $25, $20 starts to get a little bit like,
Yeah.
But I reckon
That's
it'd be a
a
good one for 3X, something different. I get to squeeze and ogle their, their new music studio. I got it. See,
Where is the studio?
it's on Union Street, opposite the fields, near the stadium. It's on the corner, like the, Anzac Ave, Forsyth Bar Stadium is like right here.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
little wing, yeah. It's at the back
cool.
of the teaching room. Lots of my classes there.
Oh, cool.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's where it is anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I thought I bought a ticket. I hit interested on Facebook, as I am wont to do on Facebook all the time.
Every time I open Facebook, Liam Dell is interested.
Yeah, that's literally every time anybody ever discusses Facebook with me, they're like, "Is there anything you're not fucking interested in?"
That's good. I think it's a good,
It's the only thing I
actually
use
a great tool.
It's the only thing I use Facebook for. Literally the only thing I use Messenger, and that's it.
It's a great tool because you see something and you're not necessarily guaranteed to be going to it, but you can be interested and you can see the news that pops up.
And other
around
people
that
see
event
it.
And I
Yeah.
think it's good.
But yeah, so and then I saw they had limited tickets, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy this motherfucker.
So when is this?
Wednesday, the 11th of August.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
You should get the Night Lunch dudes on this pod, I reckon.
Yeah, I've actually had them on my list for a while.
reckon the 2 Liams.
Liam and Liams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clunes and Hoff. I reckon they'd be great guests. Very funny, intelligent men.
This is something I do want to admit on the podcast, and I do want to put this sort of message forward because this is something that I don't want to sort of be, I guess, misconstrued about what I'm doing here. Is that I love anyone that's creating anything, and I love music. I love art. I love writing. I love anything. I love anything that's created from anyone, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone about anything. But I do struggle to talk to people about music, and I'm such a homebody that I don't often go to gigs. Like times that you and I will go to something is admittedly fairly rare because I'm not often in the mood to go out to something, and you know this about me.
Yeah. I think that's
so,
super common as well.
Yeah, but I also feel like a lot of guilt within that because I feel like I should be supporting people. Like as someone that creates something myself, I would expect people to be turning up to something that I present. So I feel like in turn I should be putting my time and effort into going to someone else's thing.
Yeah.
So I do feel guilty in like specifically with these night lunch guys. I love their music. I love their music. I definitely do, and I love those boys. Like I think they're fantastic. Like they're just so lovely. Every time I've seen them, they're just the nicest guys, and it's just they're a lovely presence to be around. And so that alone is enough for me to be interested in something that they do. But I feel like with my absence in their actual performance, like I feel like I would struggle to have that conversation with that person. And I feel like a lot of the dynamic based around what I want to do in this show is more to just not talk about someone specifically and what they do. Is just to do what you and I are doing now. It's just
Have
to
a
sort of
yarn.
ramble on,
Yeah.
which I find more enjoyable, and it's
People
sort of,
prefer that as well.
yeah, and I hope that really does reign true, because I do want to present content that is fathomable to a majority, rather than putting on like an interview platform. Like, and this is not an argument for why I shouldn't get lunch on, because I 100% will, and I say will because like I'm confident that I will make that happen.
Yeah.
But you know, I just feel a bit of guilt involved. Like I feel like, whether it's true or not, because this is obviously my own perspective on the subject, but I feel like without the sort of real engagement with that artist, it's hard to really sort of like have them have a real acceptance that they're there, or at least comfort with me as a person that's talking to them.
Yeah.
Like I would hate to talk to someone when I don't really know anything about what they do, but that in itself is also exciting, because I get to find out those things about that person. So I would like to be someone that can not have to show up to someone's performance or show or whatever, and then talk to them, because then I can find out the sort of the intricacies. I much prefer, like, whether I like someone's art, and I mean art in the broad sense of like encapsulating music and art and writing poetry, anything that you can put under the label. I'd rather hear someone talk about what they do and why they do it, without the fact of actually like interpreting that art. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather like have someone come on and tell me about their art as a whole, than have me to go, oh, I like or don't like this. Tell me why you do it.
But yeah,
do you know what I mean?
and yeah, for sure. But that's also that's an advantage, you know. That's something you can. That's a concept choice, you know. Like there's a difference between being like a music journalist, if you want to call it that, right? Like somebody who is attending gigs, meeting musicians, and then being like, hey, I've got this podcast or this radio show or this television show or whatever, and I want you to talk. There's a lot of inherent, there's like an inherent sort of position that each of you are taking in that exchange, right? Where it's like, you're the artist, I'm the interviewee, and then therefore you're kind of locking it into this sort of dynamic that you have to have. Whereas it's fine not to have that dynamic. There's lots of people that I'm sure are fine with not having that dynamic, you know, like there's lots of people like I know from what music I've played live, and you know, obviously it's going to be way different for those guys because they play it on a different level, or they have different experiences, whatever. But you know, you like to have an audience, you like to have a receptive audience, you like to have an audience that understands. So at the end of the day, that is like that's the dream, you know. That's like if every piece of art that you created, you had an audience that you knew their faces and their names, and you knew that they were receiving the art in the exact way that you intended it to be received. That's a fucking pipe dream, to be honest with you, bro. You know, like that's a goal. That's obviously something that people want, and that's what you want when you're creating a lot of it. But you have to be realistic and be like, that's not always what my audience looks like. That's not the way they're perceiving it. People are so variable that it's you sort of have to step away from that concern a lot of the time, you know, like that, you know, you're not going to the gigs and you're not being seen at these gigs. You're not. I don't think that has as big of an impact on this as you think it might, you know, like lots of people that are just keen to have a yarn or might know you or know of the show or whatever. They've had people, you've had enough guests at this stage where, you know, it would have come up between people like, you know, somebody comes on the show and they see somebody that's been on the show and they're like, oh, what's this like? What's Kieran like? Yada, yada. That's where a lot of it's going to come from. You know, you don't have to be the kind of guy that's going to all of their shows and then being like, hey, I really love this, 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 and this. I want you to come on the show and we're going to discuss this, 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 and this. Like, true. Personally, that would probably turn me off if I was performing and you come up to me. Wouldn't necessarily turn me off because I guess part of it would be ego and you'd be like, oh, cool, that dude is receiving this and he wants to, you know, there's something to be said for that. Yeah. But that and without that experience as the listener, it's harder to engage with that as well. For sure. But that's also fucking draining as a human being. Like you can't always be Johnny on the spot who's at every gig, paying the money, working in the day, drinking if you choose a drink, whatever. having a blaze, whatever you want to do, and go to these gigs and interact with these people, you know, on a regular basis. There's enough of that happening in Dunedin that it would wear you down significantly, you know. Yeah. And I go to a lot of gigs, and sometimes that's, you know, I don't always have the same outcome. Sometimes I'm like, you know, that was cool, but far out, I almost would have just been better served staying at home. Like, and I know it's different if you want to meet somebody and you want to bring them into this format and, you know, have sort of an optimal, what you see as an optimal conversation happening, whatever. But it doesn't. I was talking to Lachlan, my mate Lachlan, who is the lead singer of an up and coming band Dunedin called Man Ray. Right, shout out to Man Ray, the boys. I was explaining this to him as well. He was kind of, you know, asking me how I had such an array of people that I'd sort of interacted with, and people had seemed to have X viewpoint on me. Like everyone that heard me, it was like, oh, you're receptive to this, or you understand this, or whatever. But I was like to him, I'm like, man, the whole reason that it happened is because every one of these interactions is completely fucking random. Like every human interaction is completely random. There's so many other elements going into it, you know. So you could go to one of these gigs, absorb all of the music, like feel like you had a real connection with the group, and then the group might just be like, no, you know what, I don't want to be on this podcast because they don't like to speak publicly about the art. They don't know how to convey the art. They just aren't a public speaker. They're not a person who is willing to hear their voice be transmitted outside of the format that they've chosen. That's fine. And then, and you understand that, you know what I mean? And I know that you understand that. And that's just how it is. That's random, you know, and you might come up to somebody else who's like, fucking, you've never met them, and they're like, oh, I heard about, you've had people, you've had guests on that have approached you and been like, I want to be on the podcast, you know, I've got this music that I want to convey, or I want to have these conversations. It's a fucking random roll of the dice all of the time, you know. And even people who have like somehow slipped into, you know, positions of prominence or whatever, where like they've been able to make this their living or whatever, like so much of that is a completely fucking random variant as well, you know. And you know, as we were talking about before the podcast anyway, you got shit going on that's completely random. You know what I mean? Like, you got some shit coming up that people are going to be interested and excited about, and it's probably going to draw more people into this completely randomly, you know? Yeah. So I feel like you obviously it's natural to be concerned about that and, you know, be like, oh, who's going to come and listen to this, or who wants to have this conversation? But honestly, man, just don't be. Like, you know, and I know it sounds like a real, you know, blasé information to hear.
But you're right. You're right. And part of the reason why I bring this up with you is because it's good for me to have that second opinion put on me, because, you know, like myself, and I know tons of other people will just overanalyze everything that they do as an individual. And it's definitely something that I do, and I definitely overthink things that I definitely don't need to do. And everything you said is true there. Like, you know, I've definitely hit people up to come on here that don't want to do it, and that's fine. And I've had people that have come to me and be like, I want to use your platform. And that's obviously fantastic, because, you know, I'm happy to give people the voice if they feel like they need a voice. But yeah, I don't know. It's been fun, you know.
Yeah, well, you think about all the conversations that you've had with people already that, you know, you just wouldn't have. You just wouldn't have.
No.
And like the amount of people, I know, I feel like I say this the other 3 or 4, 5 times we've been on, whatever, where I say that every time. Like, people are like, what's going on with the pod? Listen to this pod, was all interested. Like, that's what it's about, man. How, you know, far out. How many, you know, the concept of the podcast is like a library, you know. There's going to be one book that's fucking checked out 1,000 times, you know. There might be Homer's Odyssey in the library, checked out 1,000 times because it has this reputation. People are like, oh, I've got to get on board with this. Yeah. And then there's this other fucking book that changes one person's life, or it just is completely random and just falls into their lap, and it's just like, it has the same zeitgeist appeal and randomly thrusts itself into a position of importance. It's all fucking randomization. Like, everything that's ever happened, especially in the last 2 years, personally for me, have shown me that it's so inherently random that the only stress that it provides is to feel like you have any control over any of these scenarios, and you don't. You do have some control over it in terms of creating the environment, but in terms of who are drawn to that environment and how that environment is presented to others, once it's out there, it's fucking out there, man. You know, like, it's, you've got no choice.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the random, dice rolls of the whole thing. It's like, think of how far you've come with the art and the studio that we're in right now, like far out. You probably wouldn't have even thought about doing that 4 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago,
Yeah, it's I definitely consider myself lucky in terms of like what has sort of fallen into my lap. I definitely think that, I appreciate a lot of people or most people that put time and effort into what they do, and not to say that I don't put time and effort into what I do, because I do. But it's easy to look at your own work as invalid in comparison to others.
Oh yeah, far out.
And like in terms of just having this space, this has been something that really did fall into my lap, and I was in the right place at the right time, and made the call that needed to be made, and sorted this out, which has been super beneficial to me as an artist to have a space to work in. And obviously, there's tons of people in Dunedin that don't have that capability. Don't have the place that they want to be able to do the things they do, and I definitely don't think my art would have, progressed the way that it has if it had not been for this space. So there's definitely, obviously, like this. I don't know if this is. Obviously, this is all in sort of hindsight, but I don't know if this would have happened without the studio space, because the concept would have arisen.
Yep.
I think that would have come to fruition somehow, but with the benefit of having the studio, it definitely wouldn't have got to the point that it is now without this. Like doing this from home would be quite interesting.
It wouldn't work. I don't know if it wouldn't work. No one say it wouldn't work.
It'd be a lot more intimate, I feel.
Yeah, it'd be harder. It'd be way harder. Like, and well, I would assume for you anyway, because I know you probably better than anybody that's ever been on this. Is that like I just couldn't see it projecting the same way if you had to bring them into your home. It's a whole concept of why you had the studio in the first place, right? It's because it's like I can create art. It's a whole place of why anybody has a jam space or anything. It's like I can create in this space if I have to, but I don't feel like I'm getting the full spectrum of what could be if I'm being forced to create it in this box, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's just sort of that's what's happened.
I would love to see. I would love to see how things would have progressed had it not been for the studio. Like if I had continued to be painting in the lounge at home, would I be at the place I'm at now if not for the studio? And I feel like there's definitely that potential, because I feel like you adapt to whatever environment that you're in, or what environment you have access to. And I feel like prior to the studio, I honestly think sometimes that I was actually working harder at home than I was at the studio.
You probably might have been.
The benefit of a home is you're always home,
and the goal hadn't been reached.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Like it's it's the same thing with like my home. Like I have a space that I have had like musical interactions and interaction with people that I would never have had if I hadn't have created those elements to draw people into. I say that to lots of people when they come around. They're like, people lose their mind about my studio space, my room, my house.
Fantastic.
But that's like a lot of the time I'm just like to people, I've got all of these instruments, etc. But that's because I knew that my musicianship is mostly from like a singing perspective, right? And if you're a singer or you're somebody who has like, or even extends to things like podcasts or whatever, something that uses your inner projection rather than like a tool, you have to have things to draw people into those situations in which they're comfortable to be open to that, right? So like art could have worked for you in your home. You could have kept going, whatever. But that was a random occurrence. You know what I mean? That this whole thing is a random occurrence. The same way that like, I set up the home thing to bring people in so that I could create musical adventures with other people. It's like it's all it's cool to kind of think about what would have happened, but like that's gone, and everything in the future is just completely randomized as well.
And I'm not saying it like I'm dwelling.
No. I know you're not. I know you're not.
It's interesting to analyze how these sort of events have transpired, and I think in your case, you've someone you've been more passionate about the thing that you do longer than I have been passionate about anything that I have. And so your musical ability and the nature of how you interact with music and how you facilitate music has sort of just organically transpired.
But it took me ages to get there.
Yeah,
it took me ages in the same way.
It was still in your mindset, you were still like, music is something that is ingrained in me and is something that I want to do, and I want to achieve something through this platform. And so it was sort of inevitable that you would end up in a point that when you had the space, it was something that you could utilize for that audience, whereas like this platform that I'm using now is something that I have sort of thought up through what I've accumulated, if that makes sense.
But that's the same.
I can use the space to do this now, whereas you're like, well, I suppose it's the same, isn't it? Because you're like, I have a
I started in a different part of the house. I started in a small room where, like, what I was creating was all just me. It was like keyboards, guitar, singing, and then it's like, oh, now I'm in this bigger space. I can have a mic. I can add some bass. I can add some amps. I can add the drum kit. I can add all these things. It was all you know what I mean? Like, it was all like, this is where I am now. This is what I would like to happen.
I'm building.
I'd like to be in a space where I could get 4 or 5 random people. I've had interactions where fucking 4 or 5 people I don't even know come into my room at 3 o'clock in the morning and start making music, and that's something that I always wanted to do, but that's something that, like, it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have eyed it to happen that way. But that also required complete randomization, complete rolling of the dice, and like, I could have gone backwards, gone into even smaller space, it wouldn't have happened, But
let's keep this train of thought. I need to have a piss.
All right. You're back on the Liam Dell podcast experience. I'm just going to keep talking, really. I think that it's pretty amazing, really, what Kieran's been able to achieve in the space, and the amount of people that I've seen come into the space and be amazed. The art around. If you haven't ever been into the studio, you should hit Kieran up on the 9016 podcast page to get him to be like, yo, send us some photos of the shit you're working on, or send us some photos of the studios, or what the setup looks like. Because it's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool, and a lot of people, I think, aren't aware of how epic these spaces can be in Dunedin. There's so many spaces out there that are like this. Shout out to a place like Spaceland, down on Jutland Street. Shout out to Battle Mag, Abe Hunter, those guys. There's some crazy shit that they're doing. There's lots of, like you see, the boys Man Ray, Night Lunch, crazy bands, 3/4 Marathon, Damon, Jack Berry, all those guys. It's here, and we can create it. So, like I said, it's all randomized roll of the dice, Yeah. But, we're here on a cool Thursday night, 22nd of July, drinking some gin and tonic, smoking on a cigarette, looking at a lamp, looking at some lights, looking at a great painting here right now beside me by Kieran Kurama, as previously spoken about. If you get the chance, listen to the new music by School Fair, new Dunedin band with some familiar faces. I'm not sure when this podcast comes out, but they're playing on Friday night at the Crown. Shout out to the Crown, locking it down for like 40 years in Dunedin, legends of the scene. Go to the Crown if you've never been to the Crown. Rock on, honestly. Yeah. God, I got a face for radio. Tell you that right now. Luckily, the toilet's really close to the studio, so I'll be rambling for a long time. A lot of stuff to edit out. So, your door closing, door opening. Hello. This is actually a private studio. Oh.
You've been talking this whole time.
Oh, I've been trying.
Maniac.
I've been trying to talk. You know me, can't shut me up.
Ooh, it's a bit smoky in here.
Happens.
Bring another candle on next list.
Can you grab my cell phone that's on that chair as well?
Yeah.
Also, ladies, on Tinder, you see me? Oh, speaking of.
You're gonna match these.
I did. But, if you see me on Tinder, swipe left. I'm a deviant. I'm an awful human being. If you know what's good for you. I'm the kind of guy your mother told you to stay away from, so. What scent's this candle?
Evening fireside glow.
Evening fireside glow.
Yeah. Decadent.
It's going to be made out of... It doesn't even have the ingredient. Wait, what? It fully doesn't say what's in it or what it's made out of or what scent it is?
It's candle. It's made out of candle.
Candle. Huh? You ever see Fight Club? Huh? See Fight Club?
I haven't
Remember
actually
that? Fat, the soap.
seen it yet.
Fight Club?
We've been meaning to watch it for a long time.
You ever seen Fight Club?
No, I've never seen Fight Club. It's been on a flat movie list for a while.
What, others haven't seen Fight Club?
Yeah.
The other people in your flat haven't seen Fight
I
Club.
can't expect everyone to have seen it.
I don't know. I just watched it a shitload in English. And
Do you need a drink? Are you good?
I probably will soon, but I'm right at the moment. Fight Club? Yeah.
Cult classic? So
Fight Club? Yeah, it is a cult classic. It wasn't very commercially successful when it came out. Definitely think it's one of those movies that has probably benefited from the themes in it remaining relevant. It's a little bit...
so?
Oh, just the consumerism themes in it, the sort of like male isolation themes.
Male isolation thing.
Yeah. Well, it's about a whole bunch of men that start a fight club, essentially, because they feel...
Oh, yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Well, yeah. Basically, they start a fight club because they feel disenfranchised.
So it's like a club of people that fight.
Yeah. The whole concept is there are people that are downtrodden by their consumerist lifestyle and they feel like they've been, Edward Norton and Brad Pitt give all these speeches about, we had, like Brad Pitt's famous speech is, we're the children of, the Great Depression. We have no Great Depression. The Great Depression is our life kind of thing.
Do you need water?
Do you need water?
I've got one bottle of water. Do you need any water? I'm going to bring it out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to disrupt.
No, it's fine. I'll just keep going. I mean, it's my podcast anyway, so. PSA to people out there, if you're listening, stop asking me how the podcast is going. Well, don't stop asking me, but ask Kieran, You can ask me. That was douchey, sorry. You can't ask me how you can't ask me how the podcast is going, but
Essentially yours.
I mean, not really.
I mean, one day this rights will be signed into yours. When I inevitably die at 30, the podcast will
Jesus. I'm older than you, so what happens when I die at 30?
Well, you'll still be alive when I die at 30.
Like, you just die April 1st. So, April 1st, what year would it be? 20... Oh, Jesus, this is bad. 20...
Was that 2021? It'd be
2024?
2026.
No. Oh, 2026, yeah.
Fuck, that's not far away.
No, I know. I'm almost... Yeah, I know. It freaked me out. When I low-key had a bit of a freak out the other day when I turned... the other month when I turned 26.
Just low key.
Yeah. Just low-key. No fleek. No, I like... Yeah. No fleek zone, No, but I did freak out a little bit. I was like,
Well, naturally, man. Like, fucking hell.
Not really though, because like I've got lots of friends that are like,
Jesus Christ.
I mean, thanks. I mean, I was hanging out with Joel from Porpoise's dad. I've hung out with his dad a couple of times. His dad's like 40. I was hanging out with him. I'm like, how old are you, man? He's like, I'm 40. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, my son Joel is 20. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, isn't that band Porpoise? I was like, yeah.
How did you find turning 25? I know you're 26 now, but like, was it like quarter life crisis time, or was it like?
It was a little bit weird. Yeah, it was a little bit weird, but at the same time, I don't know. I've got this weirdly optimistic. I don't want to be an old person, but I also have this kind of faith that I've met a lot of older people recently. I've been doing lots of work around town. One of the guys that I do work for is an 85-year-old man. He's ridiculously independent. Still like walks his dog.
You'd hope so at 85.
What? That is... What? What does that mean? I mean, what? No. I mean, like, he's still walking and like alive and breathing.
Yeah.
I feel like
I mean independence and like you can do it.
Oh, you can do your own shit. You wipe your own ass.
Yeah.
But even at 85, sometimes it's a big question.
That's true.
But I've met people. I remember meeting people. When you're younger and you're like, this dude's sick, motherfucker, 60. His life's over. There's an 85-year-old guy who's just like
60.
There's an 85-year-old guy. He'll often, I'll be doing work on his house, be like, oh, by the way, if you see me like collapsed on the ground, just phone this number. Like, and if I'm dead, yeah. He's literally just that blasé about it. He's like, if I collapse, you know, you can contact this number, but if I'm dead, if you think I'm dying or if I'm about to die, just let me go. And I was like, oh yeah. And he said that within like an hour of me meeting him. So,
well, I mean,
which
honestly,
is fair.
There's humor in that. There's sadness in that. There's
I don't think there's any
reality
sadness in
that.
it for this guy. Eh?
Well, that's kind of where I'm leading. Is like, you know, how awful would it be you just meeting that guy and then the next day
he dies.
He's out on his front porch and he's laying flat on his back and you're like, oh my God, what is happening? You know, at least then you have that expectation of like, this dude could potentially be dead.
Well, that's why he did it.
There it is. He's dead.
But I think he already sort of figured that, you know, when I was like, you know, I was like, oh, you know, in your 70s. He's like, no, I'm 85. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's like,
some dudes look good.
some dudes do look good. And then some dudes look like straight trash. And I feel like I'm going to look like straight trash. By the time I'm 40, I feel like some people will look at me and be like, Jesus Christ, look at that 65-year-old man.
I'm sorry, but who really looks like fantastic when they're 60?
Oh, no, nobody. I'm not planning on it. I just don't really like, I'm not keen on the concept of like just being old in general, you know? I know that's obviously like, oh, no shit, dipshit, but like, that's, I don't know. It's not a frightening concept to me because, you know, my dad's 74 and he's still like, you know, still doing his thing, he's still doing whatever. But it's kind of like, it's just bizarre. I think it's just bizarre. The amount of people that you see, you know, that I've had interaction with or whatever that like die in their early 60s. It's like, damn, like that dude, that's young. That's so young. But then when you kind of consider the concept, you're like, damn, it's like 61. That's another 35 years. Like,
what scared me was when my nana passed away and where she was buried. All the graves, I suppose, that were in the vicinity of where she was buried, it was all like dudes
Young
that
people.
have died in their 40s and 50s.
yeah,
And that was like, what?
yeah.
Like that was the normal at one point in time where men were dying in their 40s. You know, that was like the normal age to die.
Yeah.
Which is pretty absurd.
Yeah. I think it's still, you know, we had a family friend, 2003, he was about 45 when he died. And lecturer, I didn't have any classes today at uni because one of the lecturers in the education department died. And she was, I don't know, in her late 40s maybe. And yeah, it's just like, but it's almost like, it's weirdly comforting in a way, in some kind of way. Like I'd be very distraught for the people that I had in my life that you kind of affected from that. But at the same time, it's sort of nice to think of like passing away that way in a weird way. Like it's kind of nice to just be like, one day you're just like a moderately middle-aged kind of person. And it's sad because you obviously have so much life left. But it's also like nobody ever gets to see you at the stage where like you can't walk and you can't like, you know.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. And not to romanticize the idea, but I feel like, you know, you look at like the 27 Club, you know, Hollywood stars that have died miraculously at 27. And there's a whole bunch of people at this age that have died at 27. And you look at those people like one person that's been sort of a standout for me or someone that has influence in my, I suppose, aesthetic or lifestyle has been River Phoenix.
Yeah.
Who's part of that club. And I look at that and it's obviously a tragic death and it's obviously due to something that it's not something that's really encouraged amongst people to do. It was a drug use.
But he had a
thing.
lot of problems in his life, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It came out later.
Beside that point, what I'm saying is that fact, someone dying at that age is always going to be sad. That's never an expectation of someone's lifespan is 27 years old. No one's ever going to presume that someone would be at
Was
their,
River Phoenix 27 though? He was younger than that, wasn't he?
I think definitely 27.
I thought he was like 24 or 25.
No, it's definitely 27. He was at Johnny Depp's nightclub.
Yeah, the Viper
when
Room.
he died. Yeah. And I'm confident it was 27. But it's just the fact that, like, again, not to romanticize this idea, but that dude, like, I'm never going to see what that dude looks like when he's old. You know?
Yeah.
That guy is always going to be 27 or younger in how we see him. And there's almost like a
He was 22.
that's not true.
Yeah, he was 23. October 31st, 1993.
When he died.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he was super young. Him and like James Dean. James Dean was only like 22 or 23. Lots of people think they're older than they were, but they weren't.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
May I see that?
Yeah.
I'm sure he was part of the 27 Club.
Nah. There's actually not as many people part of the 27 Club as people think.
Wow.
Like, you know, guys like Mac Miller, Juice WRLD, Pop Smoke. I mean, obviously they're relatively new,
Dude,
but
Pop Smoke would have just turned 23. He died like
fucked up.
last year.
That's so fucked up.
22, sorry.
That one's definitely one of the worst, like, social media influenced deaths.
Wow.
Like,
I'm sorry, just to go to backtrack to this River Phoenix thing.
He was super young.
Like, this is so weird that I'm wrong on this. Like, I usually am very accepting of when I'm wrong about something, but River Phoenix was a guy that I immensely admired in terms of his acting capability and just his general aesthetic and just lifestyle. I romanticized to the point that he just became a figure in my life that was immensely influential, and I can't believe that. I didn't realize he was only 23.
Because when he was in, when they filmed you know how he's Indiana Jones at the start of The Last Crusade? He's only 17 or 18 when they filmed it. Wow. Like, he was super young. But I think the reason that his family, his parents were part of the Children of God cult. Like, their last name isn't Phoenix. Their last name is Bottom. So, like, River Phoenix, River Bottom, which I personally think is equally as dope. Like, it's kind of like poetic in a way. It's like, you know, it's almost like a Native American name.
Joaquin Bottom.
Yeah, Joaquin Bottom. Yeah. But yeah, their parents were part of the Children of God cult, because I'm pretty sure that somebody came out later on and said that, I don't know if it was Joaquin or Leaf or one of the children came out and was like that they had been molested at super young ages.
Yeah,
and that was like contributing to why River Phoenix like got into the drug scene in the first place, because he was raised in the Children of God commune, which is a crazy cult. Like the Family International, it's also called. It's a crazy as religious cult. But yeah, River Phoenix and those dudes, really young. You know, to change. You know what movie I watched? I was telling friends the other day that I'd never fully seen, and I watched it the whole time through. Was Purple Rain, the Prince movie? Like
Is it Prince movie?
the OG. Yeah, it's like the OG. It's where his whole aesthetic comes from. It's where the song Purple Rain comes from. Like,
Wait, the Purple Rain song came after the fact.
Rain.
Yeah, I know.
Purple Rain.
That's the Prince song that I know.
It comes from the movie.
That's after the fact of the movie. Interesting.
No, it's at the movie is where the song was created. The movie, the album is performed in its entirety in the film. It's a musical film, but it also has like a narrative structure.
I see.
It's like the original 8 Mile, basically, except a whole bunch of it. A whole bunch of it is like
This is a rapper.
a whole bunch of it is bullshit. Like, in terms of like it's semi-autobiographical. Like, it takes place in Minneapolis, and Prince is from Minneapolis. It has all of the Prince was like the Damon McCabe of Minnesota. You know, he created all of the other groups, like the rival band in Purple Rain. That is the rival band to Prince. He created that whole band. Like, he created all the bands around him. He made all of them.
There you go, David.
Yeah, Prince. Your Prince brother. No, but like the film, right, has a lot of very, very bizarre, like, just would not fly anymore, right? One of my favorite parts of it. So the main villain in this movie is a guy called Morris Day, right? So his band is called Morris Day and the Time. It's like the rival band to Prince's band, right? Prince and the Revolution, right? And when Morris Day's character is introduced, he's got like a man's. They're dressed real suave. They got mean ass suits. They got epic haircuts. They look like real clean facial hair. And he's got a main man like Jerome, who's like a manservant. Like, he's in the band as well. Like, when they perform, he holds up a mirror so that Morris Day can like comb his hair and shit. Excuse me. And when they're first introduced, right, they're walking down the street, and this woman pops up, and she's like, "Morris, like, how dare you? You can't sleep with me and then never phone me again, right?" And all Morris does is he goes, "Jerome," and he clicks his fingers, and Jerome grabs her and dump trucks her head first into a massive bin. Like, he fully just throws her into this bin, like head first, like really savage. and then just walks away, like clapping his hands, and they like pimp walk away, and she like lifts her head, she's like, "Oh, Morris." I'm like, "Oh, god damn, like,
That's worth more than
I know, and that's what I was like, "Damn, that would not happen now. Like, this fully would not happen at all."
Oh my god!
And it's pretty funny because like Prince in the movie is like the ultimate cool guy, right? He drives to the gigs on his purple motorcycle, like right through the crowd. He's like, "Damn, this guy's a pimp." If that ever happened in public now, you'd be like, "Who's that douche on a motorcycle? Like, he's about to run people over. Like, what's going on?" You know?
Yeah, there's definitely like a line of like what was acceptable in that time.
Oh my god!
Like a lot of not that they weren't like acceptable. A lot of Michael Jackson videos, like what they were doing at that point in time, was like not really something. But that's kind of a trend thing as well. You know, those things don't necessarily always transpire into what's happening now. It's so funny.
Yeah, I actually it's really funny. I actually learned something about. I mean, you know about my Bee Gees fandom, my Barry Gibb fandom. No, my Bee Gees fandom.
Wait, what? Do you like the Bee
Yeah, bro, I love the Bee Gees, bro.
Oh,
I don't give a
crazy.
fuck who knows it, man. They're legends of the
Never would've
craft.
guessed.
Right. Apparently, Barry Gibb introduced Michael Jackson to marijuana. Yeah.
Oh,
and,
shit.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't even know that, you know? Apparently, he'd be like, "Yo, Michael, we got to go drive off and during this recording
You wanna know
studio."
how I get to this sort of town? It's from the weed man. Michael Jackson's like, yeah, that's what I need.
Everyone thinks because his pants are all tight, but he's just like super blazed. He's actually like sitting down on the floor, like, "Ah." All those like, "Ah," they're just from him, like him freaking out, like he doesn't know what reality he's in. Like, "Ah, I'm staying alive." Fully Staying Alive is about like surviving like a weed freak out. Yeah.
I'm still on the weed.
Pass the joint.
Oh my god, that's
funny
so
shit.
funny.
It's funny
It's
shit.
funny to think that like celebrities interact.
Yeah, like they're just mates with each other. Eh? Barry Gibb just rocks around to Michael Jackson's house like,
Mike?
"What's up, Michael? Come on, man. Let's go and smoke this weed."
And I got some stuff for you.
Oh my god. Imagine you've just got like hundreds of millions of dollars and you're just like, you know, "I had to go around the corner to buy $50 of weed off this guy, Michael. Like, come smoke this shit with
Man,
me."
my pesky neighbor Michael Jackson used to come around and grab weed off me.
Motherfucker, I ain't got any left.
That's so funny, man.
I just imagine it's just hilarious, like thinking of like Michael Jackson writing like "Heal the World," just like blazed as fuck, you know?
Have you seen that video of him like singing? It's for one of those like charity songs where they have like multiple artists on the same track. And it's,
Yeah, but for "We Are the World," right?
well, it must have been like when he does his
We
verse or
are the
whatever.
world.
Yeah.
We are the children.
And there's like there's a clip with him. He sings the like the end of his bit, and then there's other two artists that sing like their bit, and they're like
Yeah, I think
rock
it's
and roll.
I think it's Huey
artists.
Lewis and Cyndi Lauper if I've seen the video. And
They
he's
go
just
to
like
sing
real
this.
intolerant, eh?
Really trying to sing something. Michael just gives him the death stare. It's so funny.
I've seen those videos, eh? But that's like psycho to think about, like all the context behind that. He's probably like younger than them at that point. We Are the World came out in 1985.
Oh,
He was
wow.
born in 1958, so he's probably like my age. He's like 26 in that video.
Right.
He would have been in recording studios for like 20 years at that point. Like that's so fucked up. He would have just the thought of like a child having to be forced to be in a recording studio at like 2:00 in the morning. They're like, "All right, now Michael, get this motherfucking thing straight, right?" Like
But I
it's
suppose he had that his whole life, right?
oh, that's because he was like beaten
Growing
into
up
it
in
though.
the-
You know, like
I
that
don't
was.
know much about that.
Oh man, that shit's awful. That stuff's fucked. Like that's why I kind of struggle with the like whole Finding Neverland thing and like the balance between his victims and, well, if you want, you know, it's subjective, but victims and like what had happened to him. And same with R. Kelly in a lot of ways. Like I've read a lot about R. Kelly. Now R. Kelly got molested by one of his aunts when he was 9. So like that's never going to put you on the right foot to have normal sexual interactions with anybody.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
it's no justification, but it's still a
It's an
factor.
understanding. It's not a justification at all. No, he's still responsible as an adult for his actions. But the Jacksons were like, they grew up in Gary, Indiana, which is like one of the most brutal cities in America. Like it's like one of the most, I think it still has one of the highest crime rates in America. Like it's fully savage. And they had a whole bunch of children, right? I don't even know how. By the end of it, there was like 11 Jacksons or whatever.
The Jackson 11.
Yeah. Well, they didn't let any of the girls in because it's only men back then, you know. But his dad was basically like a piece of shit who just was like an alcoholic, gambling, like noticed his kids had a whole bunch of musical talent. Was like, I'm just gonna drive you until you get this shit down. And I think that's why he was such good friends with Barry Gibb, because that's what happened with their family as well. Like they started performing when they were like 8 and 6, and their dads were like, "You're gonna make the money for the family. Like you're gonna write these songs. Like I'm a dude with frustrated musical aspirations." I don't think the Gibbs dad ever like beat them. I think he was just super like hard on them. Whereas like Joe Jackson was like fully beating all of them like from day one, essentially, kind of thing. Like I read a story that they were performing in like strip clubs, and they had an act where Michael would like crawl on his hands. He would have been like 8 or 9. He's performing in strip clubs, and he had an act where he would like crawl through the table, underneath the tables of these strip clubs, and like pretend to look down these women's dresses, and that was part of their act. And then they were also super Jehovah's Witness. They were really fundamental Jehovah's Witnesses, and their mother didn't know that their dad was making them perform, like, or he would say things to them like they're going to perform in kids' halls or like for veterans and things like that. But he's taking them to strip clubs and all these really messed up places. Because it sounds like back in the day, strip clubs and places were the places that would let children perform because they didn't have any child labor laws, and they wanted performances in between the strippers, kind of thing. Because the Bee Gees did that as well. But yeah, basically they'd go do these performances, and then the dad would be like, "Don't tell your mother where we've been, or I'll beat the crap out of you." And then we'd go back, and their mother would be like, "Don't forget, all of these things are super sinful, like sex and alcohol and all these things of the world are super sinful." So they're getting like ridiculously mixed messages from the start of his life. Like, and then when they got famous and he was like 12 and his brothers were like 16 or 17, 18 kind of thing, they would all share a room because they wanted them to like say conserve money so they could make as much money as possible. And they had like groupies, right? Because they're like 16, 17, 18 and they're dudes. They just, they're getting in the scene or whatever. And Michael's only like 12 and they're sharing the same room. And they're basically just to Michael like, turn around and shut up and pretend you're not here. Like, so that's some pretty savage shit to happen to anybody. Like, and obviously, yeah, like we say, it doesn't excuse what may or might not have happened, but it's like, I feel like nowadays there's more of an emphasis on understanding why these people of the past or why people of the future have been created the way they are. And that's like super gnarly and I feel like super forgotten, like because of how famous he got when he was older and how influential he was like when he was like 18 plus kind of thing, and how like just massive he was as a marketing tool or whatever. But it's like, Jesus, like the first 10, 15 years of his life are super fucked up.
Isn't it gnarly how like when you're in the public eye, how much your persona and your figure, I suppose, is presented, or how you are so conscious about how you are as a person or what you're doing,
especially
as a
back
celebrity.
then.
Oh my goodness! Like because you are in a sort of a limited category at that time period as well. Like there's obviously an array of, artists that are thriving and popular. I don't think is really comparable to today. Like the amount of music, that is accessible today, is immensely vast.
Yeah,
and obviously superior in that sense to what was happening at the time of Michael Jackson's upbringing. So like to be a celebrity in that point in time is like
super manufactured for you.
Oh my goodness.
But
you have to be so aware of what you're doing.
And that's what happened. That's a pendulum thing really, isn't it? It's like there was so many years in popular music from, I'd say maybe the start of the grunge era was when it started to slip a little bit, but from like the 20s, 30s, all the way to like the grunge era, that's a decent like 60, 70 years. It's all like, you need a manager and you need PR because you need to be presented this way, Teen idols need to be presented as like chase, like their family kids. They don't indulge in drugs and alcohol, and that's what made them indulge in drugs and alcohol because they're like being forced to do all these things they don't want to. It still happens today, like guys like Justin Bieber and stuff. But he was a very old school sort of. I feel like he's more of an exception now than a rule because the pendulum has swung so much the other way in terms of like. excuse me, people, because you have a lot of options in how your music is presented and how the platforms are chosen and your image, you are able to make an image out of being alternative. And that's where a lot of the grunge influence came from. That's why grunge was so massive, because it's like these guys are purposely only making 3-chord songs that anybody can play. It's about the image. It's about the push away from consumerism or whatever. And now it's like the pendulum, like a 6ix9ine, like a fucking 6ix9ine. You take Tekashi 6ix9ine, you throw that motherfucker in like 1978 at the same age. Jesus Christ! Like,
right.
obviously it wouldn't be comparable because the whole context of the era and whatever. But like, he'd be locked up. He would fully be locked up. Like that's what they used to do. They either used to lock you up or push you out of the mainstream, or they'd kill you.
Those themes weren't even present at the time. Like
No.
the difference between Michael Jackson and Tekashi 6ix9ine is
But
that those things.
All those things had to happen for Tekashi 6ix9ine and people like Billie Eilish and a lot of these things where you're shifting away. You still have the musical talent, but you're allowed some sort, even if it's a lot of the time, even the idea of alternativism is a front. Like I don't know, like say something like Lorde, who's become popular, obviously based on more of her. She was kind of perceived as a breath of fresh air, right? Somebody who was creating her own songs and like, whatever. As regardless of what we think about her, the reason that she was popular is because it's a move away from having songs written for them and being a dancer. Like her image has never relied on her being a dancer or her being a sexual object or whatever.
She did bring sort of an alternative take to New Zealand music as well.
There's more of a dream pop, alternative, Kate Bushy kind of influence to her music than, say, the Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah.
And the Pussycat Dolls are only like, less than 10 years before her? And obviously those are all different fields of the pop stream medium. But all those people had to lay those foundations in order for those people to exist. And I guess someone like Kate Bush is kind of comparable. We talked about Kate Bush, I feel like, in the one with Damon, the podcast way back. So I don't want to go over that again. But yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, folks, my power bank died. I had to reset everything there. We're black in power. Black. Oh, Jesus. We are back.
We're black in power.
We're good to go. So, what were we talking about?
I wouldn't even worry about it.
That's never happened before.
We were talking about Lorde and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like people I don't know. I have an interesting sort of perception, or I guess rather an outside perception when it comes to like what becomes popular within New Zealand music. Because like if you look at an artist like 660, it's not something that I'm really into, but it's something that New Zealanders really enjoy, really get amongst. And I try to figure out what that is, and I think we do have like a sense of pride when it comes to New Zealand culture, but I'm not sure like where 660 sort of fits into that.
Barbecue rock, brother.
Barbecue rock. But like what is it about? Like 660, they're kind of just talking about like, and I'm sure people that are fans of 60 would say this thing sort of as well, but it's like, it's real shit, it's all about like family and it's all about like real stuff that's relative to people, but it's like what is it about that's so New Zealand? What is it about 660 that in New Zealand, aside from the fact that they've an artist or band that has come up within New Zealand, and like what do you think it is about them? And also Lorde can come into this argument because she's another artist that has gained an immense popularity through just sort of being a New Zealand artist. Like, what is it about their styles that becomes so significant within our culture?
I think it's just like, I don't know. I think I feel like there's an aspect of like separate New Zealand identities from the North Island, South Island that aren't really ever identified in the New Zealand cultural kind of whole. I feel like a lot of the time. Like I feel like 660's music is probably super applicable in like, I know it sounds really, I don't know, to put them in a category or box of like Auckland, sunshiny kind of area. I feel like it's probably quite connectable in terms of just like, a lot of music that is played to the radio is designed to be like to match a mood or a setting, right? And I feel like a lot of it is there's almost a lot of like market like thinking that goes into the creation of that music. And
Do you think they've just sort of like fell into this field?
well, I think if you look at the way they started, like a band like 660, they started as like a reggae group, right? Because I guess that was the music they were passionate about, influenced by whatever. And now they're sort of just like a New Zealand attempt at Maroon 5, really, aren't they? They're just sort of like an arena band that kind of is sort of seems to be fronted by the one guy more than anybody else in the band.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't really know enough about them because I don't really.
Nor do I really, and I'm definitely not the person to speak on them and what they do. It's evident that they are something that us as a country enjoy. And I am obviously speaking as a whole, not for any individuals, but like generally speaking, you could speak to a lot of people and they would enjoy 660 in some way, shape, or form. I wonder if this is like, is this what we are to expect from any given New Zealand artist to perform in sort of the same way 660? Like, how do we change our culture to sort of embrace something more than what someone like that band offers? How do we embrace something that is more in a broad sense? I feel like a lot of what our country is based around is rugby culture and farming culture.
I think in terms of the music scene, I think it's
not that they are bad things.
No. But I understand what you mean. Though. I think, God damn it, it's a smoky night, eh? I think in terms of the music culture, there's a lot of short-sightedness when it comes to the popular music of New Zealand in terms of how it is perceived legacy-wise, Like, the Dunedin sound is actually ridiculously influential outside of New Zealand in a lot of ways, like in like the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Like, I met a guy at a party, maybe, I don't know, middle of last year, who moved from Palisades Park in Los Angeles in California. He moved specifically to Dunedin because he grew up listening to like the Clean, Straight Jacket Fits, and all these Dunedin sound bands. Like going to Dunedin was like his Seattle,
Right.
which
That's crazy.
was crazy. Like,
That's
and him
fucking
fully. I like him fully. I thought he was pulling me. I'm like, really? He's like, no. Like, I fully wanted to be where these guys created this music from because like
Holy
my
shit.
dad just introduced me to this music. And it was like my whole introduction to
That's
international
unheard of.
world music. It seems like it's unheard of, but I've also met other people that have been in the States and in those parts of the world and been like, yeah, like you tell people you're from Dunedin specifically, you tell people that you're from New Zealand, and they're like, yeah, the Clean, Straight Jacket Fits, like the Mutton Birds, all of these bands from like the 80s, 70s, 80s, and
No
90s,
shit.
which is fucking crazy. And I think that like that's still that element still kind of exists underlying in New Zealand. It's just that it's never, those bands were never particularly chart like toppers in New Zealand anyway, even when they were popular internationally or popular in like a club scene or whatever. And so I feel like 660 is definitely, it's a bit of a like a tall poppy thing in New Zealand where it's like they've become so large within New Zealand that a lot of people have just turned off to them in terms of what their legacy is going to be in the future because they have been ordained or chosen as like the sort of radio torch holders in New Zealand. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's something that probably happened in the past as well. But whether or not those bands have like kind of stayed in the zeitgeist or not is a different story. Like bands like True Bliss and stuff. I remember True Bliss, those girl bands and stuff being really like popular / their music was played all the time on the radio, but their legacy of what the music means isn't necessarily going to be pushed any further than their immediacy right now, like, or there would be times that I remember listening to radio growing up and being like thinking that lots of songs were international songs and they weren't. They're actually from New Zealand, like that For Today song, For Today. That song was recorded in Dunedin, and like lots of people probably didn't know that because it's just like it's part of the zeitgeist, it's part of the music, The other song like Maxine, dun, 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 you're not the only one. I always thought those were always like international songs, and they're just random as New Zealand recorded songs,
Yeah. Interesting.
But I guess because like maybe New Zealand music is going through, particularly in like the 1980s in Australia, lots of Australian bands started becoming really popular, like NXS.
Are they Australian?
Surely you knew that.
Sorry, that might be stupid.
Surely you knew that NXS were from Australia.
Wow, I did not.
Really? NXS are probably like Australia's one of their biggest bands, I'd say. NXS, Men at Work. Men at Work have like...
I just consume music as like a whole.
Yeah, bro.
I really
I don't
focus
look
on
at-
like where they come from.
I don't look at
I
like...
just take it in, bro.
I don't look at nationality, bro. I don't. Nah, but like, yeah. Like Men at Work, NXS, Cold Chisel, Midnight Oil, friggin' all these bands just randomly from Australia just started dominating in like Britain and America. And I feel like maybe that has sort of started to happen in New Zealand, but like very piecemeal. Like you got Fly the Conchords kind of breaking through a little bit. Like I know their music is a piss take, but they had the Crowded House, another song from the 80s as well.
That was what I said.
They're in New Zealand. They're an Australian band, but they have New Zealanders. They're New Zealanders. But
Oh, really?
well, the Fly the Conchords, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I feel like people really underlook how big Fly the Conchords were in making New Zealand culture bigger overseas. Like, I remember buying their album that was the songs from the first season of the television show, and that went to number 3 in the United States on their
shit.
on their Hot 100 chart. It was the highest charting album by New Zealanders since Crowded House, and it was also the highest charting album by a band that was comprised fully of New Zealanders, you know? And then Brett McKenzie...
Is that meme culture? Like, is that...
But it was before meme culture, bro.
But
That was
still, like,
2007.
But like, is that where it all comes from? You know, like was the reason that they were popular was because there was humor involved?
Probably, but the reason that they were also popular was because there was humor, but it was well-crafted humor. You know, like, there was humor, but the music itself was well recorded, and it involved a range of instruments. Like, think of that song like Prince of Parties. You're like, I'm the freaky Prince of Parties. Da, 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 da.
Honestly, I'm not super familiar
Anyway,
with that discography.
people that listen will know Prince of Parties. Sorry, people that have ears. No, no. But like Prince, but it's got like sitars in it. It's fully a pastiche. Like it's fully a late 1960s song, but made with humor and made well. And it doesn't. So it didn't really matter if it was a piss take or not. Like it was made by Sub Pop, which is like a pretty influential label in Seattle. So like they obviously were like, this is funny, but you guys are actually also fucking quite good at playing instruments. Like you can make a legitimate album out of this, you know. And like Brett McKenzie was in like the Black Seeds and stuff like that. So he was from real bands. But yeah, some of it is meme culture, and I think some of it's also part of that exoticness as well, you know, like that seems to be, I know the United States and Britain kind of tend to drive music trends or whatever, but because it's like things like Shaggy, you know, Sugar, you know. So I just wanted to do that into the mic one time. I did that awful. That was awful. Can I try that again? Sugar. That was a bit better.
What's his name from? What are the two guys in Fly the Conchords?
Brett McKenzie and Jermaine Clements.
I was going to say, I knew it was Jermaine. Well, he's had a pretty prolific career.
Shit, yeah. Movie career, yeah.
Like that obviously derived from their popularity.
Yeah. Brett McKenzie won an Oscar.
No shit.
Yeah, he wrote the main song from the Muppets movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like those dudes have, you know, my low key New Zealand claim to fame is making Brett McKenzie laugh, by the way.
Is that right?
I'll take that to my grave.
Time and place, please. tell me the
Fanboy
story.
baby. No. I just love Brett McKenzie. No, I was just at a gig that Brett McKenzie. It was called the Caravan of Animals. I think it was called. It was like Brett McKenzie, and then a whole bunch of dudes from like Fly My Pretties and Trinity Roots and some other New Zealand bands made like just a band and just decided to tour around. And yeah, Brett McKenzie was one of the main guys that was in it or whatever. And sad days. I was just like talking to. I was there with Jake Massey actually, and I said I was kind of standing in front of Brett McKenzie because everyone was going. I saw him. I'm like, I'm not going to go over and talk to him or ask for a photo because people were doing that. I'm like, that's just. First of all, I don't care about Brett McKenzie enough for that, and second of all, like I don't want to be that dude who's just going up to like, what? Why do you want a photo with Brett McKenzie? Like he doesn't know you. What the fuck?
Well, fuck.
No, I just no.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No, I know.
Why would I get a photo with Shaq? He doesn't know who I am.
No, I know. But I just mean like Brett McKenzie isn't Shaq, though, is it? You know, who idolized Brett McKenzie growing up? You know, probably nobody. But anyway, sorry, Brett. Sorry, Brian. DM me. No, but yeah, I just made a joke next to Jake, and then Jake laughed really loudly, and then Brett McKenzie must have heard the joke, and then I turned my shoulder, and Brett McKenzie's making direct eye contact with me. He's laughing. I was like, I like that.
You're a fucking funny guy.
Oh, thanks, bro.
What did you say to him?
I don't even remember. It was just some really like bad. It was like a purposely bad joke, like just something that would make Jake laugh. And I must have said it so loudly, and Jake must have just laughed so loudly that he'd heard it as well. Because at first I thought like maybe he's having a conversation with somebody, he's laughing, but he was fully like standing on his own. So yeah, yep.
That's so.
But anyway, I'm basically the third member of Fly the Conchords. I think if they ever come back together and make another album, I think we all know who deserves the third part of the royalties.
What was their inevitable demise?
I think they just didn't want to do it anymore. They probably just... I know that they made... The first season of that show, they made the episodes based around the songs that they had already created for their stage show. So they already had a whole bunch of songs. Like they had already... All the big one, like It's Business Time and all those other songs. They'd been playing those for ages, like fucking like 5 years or whatever. And then it was only supposed to be one season, the show. And then it ended up being so popular that like, can you make a second season? And they're like, yeah, I suppose. But in the second season, they had to write all the songs for the second season. That's why like, there's a song that like Kristen Schaal's character Meg sings, and there's like more songs sung by fucking Rhys Darby's character, stuff like that. They obviously just didn't. They weren't inspired to write the music. They were just doing it because they were getting paid, I think.
Right.
And then after the second season, they're like, no, we don't want to do it anymore.
I didn't realize it was a show, actually.
No, fuck off. Nah, you're fully living under a rock.
I didn't.
No, grow up, dude.
What was it
You
called?
didn't know that Fly the Conchords had a television show?
No.
Oh, fuck off. You're pulling my leg.
No, I'm serious.
Oh my God, bro.
What was it called?
Fly the Conchords. It was... No, fully you're pissing with me. Pissing with me. Fully you're holding my...
You're
holding
pissing on me, bro.
You're holding my dick while I piss, bro, honestly. No.
No, I didn't know there was a TV show.
No, you're actually kidding.
No.
Oh my God, brother. Brother. No. No, fully though. Yeah.
Fly the Conchords show. What was it based
That was
around?
That's what made them so big.
Oh.
It was an HBO Nah, you're fucking with me.
Oh, no.
It was massive. It was massive.
I'm sorry, bro.
Hey, I want people to call in, and I want you to tell us about your Fly the Conchords memories.
911,
Yeah, 9016, 9016, 9016.
No, I no.
027 555 5555. No, cinco. No. Like, damn, that blew my mind. For real.
Yeah.
Dude, you need to go home and watch the Fly the Conchords television show.
Oh, okay.
I know you probably won't.
No, I definitely won't.
But you should. I can't
I'll take
believe
your word.
that. That was literally what made them massive.
On HBO, how did we see it?
It was on. It was shown on Prime Television. It was like far out.
What was the premise of the show?
No. They were living in an apartment in New York, and they were broke New Zealanders, and they were playing shit like they'd play. No, fully, you're taking the piss. Rhys Darby was their manager.
No, it's
Murray. His name was
Liam.
Murray.
I've never seen this.
You've never
ever.
seen a single clip from the Fly the
I've never
Conchords
seen
television show.
anything of what
You've never
about.
seen Rhys Darby as Murray Hewitt, their manager.
I have not.
You don't know that that's why Rhys Darby became famous. Oh my God. All right. Shut the show down.
Bye,
No. Yeah.
No, legitimately, I've never.
Damn.
Is that how Rhys
That's blowing
Darby
my mind.
came to fame?
Oh, shit, yes.
Because I could really give a fuck about it.
Yeah, I mean, Rhys Darby sucks, but but that was definitely how they became. I mean, I feel like I'm coming off as a massive Fly the Conchords fanboy, when I'm really not. I just remember them being everywhere when I was an intermediate.
When was this? Like
2007 would have been the first season. 2008 would have been the next one.
I wasn't.
Damn, bro.
I wasn't even a functional person at that age.
God damn. What? You want a functional person?
It's not like, well, I'm subject to what my parents put on the television at the time, not what I'm in the echo chamber of.
Just
You know.
constant Midsummer Murders, I remember.
I didn't even know what I was doing when I was year 7.
Bro, I'm You're blowing my mind. I'm gonna look up this television show.
I mean, I'm not shocked by the concept. I've just never actually watched.
No, I know. I've just
whatever show it is.
never. I don't think I've met a New Zealander that didn't know they had a television show. That's you're pulling my piss, mate.
I'm not pulling your piss.
They
I'm
had
not
a-
tugging on your wiener.
22 episodes. The show received
22.
Yeah, it's got
Well,
two
that's
seasons.
why I never heard of
Two
it.
seasons.
Oh.
The show received 10 Emmy Award nominations.
Oh, for God's sake.
You're like mad about it? Like, oh god.
These sons of bitches.
Oh man, that damn. Wow.
Died at 23?
I've Yeah. 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 Damn, bro. I'm like I'm gobsmacked.
Oh, fuck. I mean,
Just
it
get
can't
real
be
mad.
that big.
No, I know it's not. I thought I knew, bro. No.
How full is your cup right now?
It could be filled.
Do you want some more?
Yes.
You do your thing.
You want some more? Thanks, bro. I'll just take it. But anyway, what else has been going on, bro? Anyone who doesn't listen, that's what I say to Kieran more than anything else.
So what's been happening?
Oh, do you want to know as well?
Yeah, I have a wee bit more. Yeah. What's been going on in your wheelhouse?
In my wheelhouse, bit of uni.
I'm waiting to hear when your album is coming out. That's the only question I want to know. When is Liam Dell? What's your persona? Are you Liam Dell?
I'm the third member of the Flight of the Conchords, bro.
But are you Liam Dell or are you fraudulent?
Yeah, I'm a 13th century Gothic romantic vampire stuck in a 26-year-old Southern New Zealander's body. Yeah, basically. Yeah, I long for the long dark nights where I can feast on the blood of virgins.
Jesus Christ.
No, damn, you handed me a loaded gun there, bruv. What do you
Well,
want?
I mean, fuck. Pull finger, mate.
Yeah, shot, man. No, I'm waiting to use these microphones.
I know you have some talent in those fingers. When are you going to put it into action?
Are you romancing me?
Maybe.
Nah. I don't know, man. I need to like get a setup like you've got, in terms of like, I need to get a job that allows me to progress. Because I'm progressing, I'm just doing it like at the level that my like money allows me to, and timing allows me to, and Jesus, education allows me to, etc. Every other time I've gotten a job, it's been like 40 hours, and then I end up going back to uni or traveling or doing, So I got lots of songs. I got songs with Cam, I got songs with guys Shane, I got songs with lots of people. I got my own songs. I got at least 120 demos on my computer.
Can I put you on the spot though?
Yeah.
Can I put you on the spot?
When do you not put me on the spot?
Well, like, okay. So you and I know you to be someone that's prevalent in music and someone that's always been passionate about music and someone that's done music for as long as I can recall, and you know how to play the guitar better than anyone that I know.
I'll take that one, bro.
That's not necessarily true.
Nah, it is, bro.
You can play guitar very well.
Thank
and
you.
you can put a song together. But, when have you ever said to me, I'm sorry, this is very blunt.
No, you can
And
do
you
it.
will take it what you will, and I know you, and I know how you can take this sort of thing. But when have you ever said to me, here's a finished product?
Yeah.
When is
Well, I
that going to
don't.
happen?
That's my problem. My problem is
What's the...
my problem is that I am best motivated to finish musical pieces and to put full effort into musical pieces when I'm surrounded by other people that want to finish and put full effort into musical pieces, I have a whole bunch of fractured bits of songs, and I have a whole bunch of things. I have a whole bunch of completed songs. I've just never... The times when I've gotten past... the times when I play live or play with groups or whatever, or have jams and I can bring them out or whatever, have been either amongst people that I inherently trust and not judge me for putting those songs forward, or when I feel like I can actually trust them to have some sort of humbleness about their own creations to be like, oh, I think I can add this to it to flesh it out this way, right? And all the other people that I've done that with have either moved away or formed bands in other groups or whatever. I'm just not very quick to the draw in forming groups. It's been my biggest problem, really. And I just
is it a necessity?
no, it's not a necessity. It's not a necessity. I just need to. I think that if I had to say that there was two things that were holding me back from completely finishing these songs and making like a full EP out of it, would be a better computer. And
Well, that's a fucking given.
yeah,
Bro, your laptop is fucking like 20 years old.
yeah, and like just like I almost sometimes wish that I had a genre of music that I just like frothed on, you know, I had to use that word, but just like if I was just like a completely alternatively minded guy, right? Whenever I've been in groups and the music starts getting heavier, or you're having jams and it starts getting heavier, I like it, but I feel like the biggest element that I can bring into my own music or group music is melody or vocal structure or like tone or pitch, right? And then lots of the time when you're having jams or whatever, you can't like form that, you know? So that's the biggest part of it, really. But I don't know. I think that it's there, it's coming. I know I say that all the time, but it is. And I just need to get like a session almost, you know, just like a 2-3 day thing where I just completely finish out, because a lot of like literally 80% of it is done. Fully 80% of it is done.
An EP.
Yeah. Like there's guitar tracks there's vocals, there's multi-track vocals. A lot of it just needs drum data to it, which was a lot of what Cam would do with his demos as well. A lot of the music that I would make with Cam, he would fully flush the like bass, synth, drum parts of it out, and then I would do guitar, bass, vocal parts of it, you know? But it's just the laptop thing's a big one.
Okay. So where does it? You've probably said this already.
Where does
it stop? Where does it stop for you? What's the next step?
Okay, let's put it this way. If I was to have one musical ambition, it would be to have a vinyl product of my own music created at some stage in my life that I could like just look at and be like, this is something that I did, and to like making your own book.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be autobiographical or whatever. But the problem is, I talk about this with Lachlan and other people that I write with and whatnot, is that whenever I fucking want to write something, I'm always somewhere complete fucking random. Like being on top of a hill or walking the dog or just doing something random and I'll be like the whole verse. I'll be in my sleep sometimes. Like a whole verse in song chorus will just come, and I just won't be around to capture it. Like I'll write it or sing it into my phone or sing it into a snippet, and I'm like, oh, that's mean. Like that's almost epic in its raw form. And then some time will pass. I'll go back to it in like 5 days and be like, I hate this. I'll just stop. I'll just leave it. And it's still there. I'll just leave it. So I don't know. I've just always battled between whether I even actually care about it being heard by anybody else. That's the biggest part of it. Like, because the worst thing to me, being in bands is super fun, right? Performing in music is super fun. Even performing in shows where I've just performed is super fun. It's fucking nerve-wracking, but it's super fun. But at the end of the day, I also know a lot of people that get like frustratingly constrained by playing the same song over and over and over. And every time when I've taken a break from performing live has been for me being like, I don't want to fucking perform this anymore. And that's almost what stops it for me. Is just like, it's almost special to create something that's just like a minute, 2 minute, 3 minute snippet with layers and layers that you can look at and sometimes you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But putting it out there, having other people appreciate it for a period of time and then necessarily being forced to play it and play it just doesn't appeal to me. Like I fully just I'm not that keen on that. Like it's just not something. If it was in a band context, then I'd be keen on it, because at least you have like other people around to be like, oh, they can talk. You know, if you were to be like, release something and then I was to come out here and be with a group, at least somebody else could speak, or they could have their own perspective on it, or they could share the brunt of like whatever the piece of art is turned into. You can share it between yourselves or whatever. But I don't know. It's a hard question. It's a loaded question.
It is.
But it's not, and it's not that it's not going to happen. And that's why I don't think it's not going to happen. It's just more about like getting the pieces together, being in the right environment to get those pieces together, and just fucking actually just being in a conscious state to just commit to it. Like, just be like, it's created. Once it's fully formed, you just fucking take hands off of it and it's out there.
Would you say then that you were reliant on others to create something of your own?
I'm not reliant on others to create something of my own. I'm just reliant on the feedback that other people who understand what you're trying to create provides to the creative process.
Does it have to be in a band context?
No, it doesn't have to be in a band context, but it's a lot harder to get other people invested in the stuff that you create if they didn't have a hand in creating it in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not impossible, but it's harder. And then that's why I've got a lot of really good friends and a lot of good mates I collaborate with, and I've helped create songs with, or create, like, even the other last Friday when I played a gig last Friday, my mate, I helped him finish off, like, he wrote the song, give him credit for writing the song. But if you were to look back on it and be like, who wrote the song? It's like 50-50. But I don't consider it to be me writing the other 50% because it was his concept and I came in and helped him fine tune it, right?
But you do you want that? Do you want your soul creation to be put forward?
But, well, I don't know. I don't know because I've never experienced it. I just, it's hard for me to put myself in somebody else's shoes and be like, I admire people like Dee Stevens or like Adelaide or Mackenzie or somebody that can like just put it forward there. But what I'm seeing from them is the very, like, they put a lot of work into where they are, right? And they put a lot of they put a lot of collective integrity into what they created. And I can definitely, I can do that. I can see that. I could see myself doing that. It's just, where the fuck do I start from that is basically been the problem, I don't really want to, I think it's the feeling of like working on something for ages, creating it, feeling really good about it, and then it's just ignored. They're just not keen on. I'd rather it just not exist outside of a circle of friends than for me to create it and it's just completely ignored.
But doesn't that bring more pure, organic art as opposed to something that is,
commercial or for consumerism or whatever?
Or not even necessarily that, just something that is brought to fruition and then, further developed by someone that has some input, which is obviously valid in most circumstances, is to have someone that can shed some light on a situation. But wouldn't you want something that is brought from something that is purely you, that is purely Liam, that comes to light?
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I also think that my relationship with music has been like, I spent a long time learning bits about music or myself or whatever, however I feel about music, and it being guided for a long time, that it almost fucked me up in terms of being like, I feel like people who say they spent their teenage years being in like rock quests and things where they were promoted as like, it's like they've got a group together or themselves or somebody's selected as like the driver of an idea or a piece of art or music or whatever, and then they're pushed or like even subconsciously supported to keep going into their like young adulthood with, through that, like someone like Damien kind of thing, just, I know I keep bringing him up, but that's like an immediate example that I could think of. Whereas I spend a lot of the time early on with my relationship with music remaining amongst myself because I didn't feel that I was ever in an environment, especially in our high school, where the teachers or the people around me would be receptive, even though we had someone like Kane Strang, because Kane Strang was somebody that I definitely looked at because he went to a high school and he was like killing it super young, and I was like, this guy he knows what he wants, or he's going for what he wants. Whereas I had a little bit of that originally, but then it was just kind of felt like it got pushed aside. And then that's just kind of influenced everything from now. And it's sort of negative. It is what it is, but I don't know. I feel like I'm in a position now where I'm probably in the best time to actually just put all my shit out there now, because I've created a good group of people that would be supportive of it. It's just like actually committing to that is the hard thing.
I agree.
And not having a genre. That's the biggest part of it. Like, I don't feel like every time I've ever written music with somebody or created music with somebody or whatever, it's always been like other people would hear it and be like, what's that genre? I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Like, I really dislike the concept of a genre or like a sound, because all of music is just influences on influences on influences. Like, that's the same with art, really, isn't it? Like, your art might have a general tone to it, but like, who the fuck is someone to say that like the music you created is psychedelic or, you know? Yeah. I just don't like playing the game. I think
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I feel like also what you could class as something that is, you know, you could feel like your music could be defined by something, some sort of category, but I feel like that's also inevitable, and I feel like that's part of the process of accepting what your work is. It's just being like, it is what it is. And if it's put into a category, then it's put in a category. I feel like if anything becomes vital, if anything becomes important in that process, it's your vulnerability. And I feel like someone like you in particular, like, I don't mean to put daggers in your back or put you in the deep end, but I feel like someone like you needs to express your vulnerability, because that will realistically emerge inside of you, that is something that is unique and is something that is diverse from the rest. Because, you know, like, how is anything going to be pure and organic if you're relying on others to bring something to light, you know? Like, I feel like you as an artist needs to just put something forward. Like, it doesn't matter whether something needs to be brought to an end. Like obviously there's a point where your sound needs to become something that sounds good. Take the commercial aspect out of it. Something needs to sound good on all platforms. That needs to be inputted at some point. But your vulnerability, sorry, I really struggle to say that word. Your vulnerability is something that is key into defining you as an artist. If you can portray that aspect of you, that's going to separate you from the rest. Don't look at someone else based on what they do to succeed. You have to look at what is in your wheelhouse and what you can put forward to separate you from the rest, because I know you have that.
Yeah, I know, and I know that I have it as well. But I think like there's something to acknowledge in collaboration in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not saying that it has to be a collaboration like an explicit collaboration. I'm not saying it has to be a group thing or like explicitly a partner thing or whatever. I just feel like a lot of the development that happens behind the scenes for a lot of people, even the people that you're seeing individually represented in music, it's never done on your own. Even like, it's very rarely done on your own, you know? Like, I know it looks like for a lot of people that it's done on their own, because it's like they created the artwork, or they mastered it, or they recorded it in their bedroom or whatever. It still requires a support base of people to get to that point, or to have the confidence to be like, you know, I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of people out there, once they've created the piece of music or the EP or whatever, that are like, right, these are the people that I want to have a response to this music. Even if they don't, you're still looking for that kind of acknowledgement from those people, right?
I disagree.
But it depends on, depends on what medium we're talking about here, right? Like, the self-consciousness of an individual for a piece of their art is totally variable, right? And it's not even necessarily a confidence question. It's more of like an integrity question. You know, you want what you're putting forward, your best foot forward, to be the best foot forward that you possibly can. And sometimes you need to look at yourself. You need to look at like what you can create and decide whether it's better to put the front foot forward immediately, or to wait until you have created what you want to represent you start it out, because the first thing you make, like you say, it's important to just get it out there, because it is important to just get it out there. But it is also important that you're confident and you feel happy with what you created, because as soon as it's created, even if you have a minute audience, that's still gonna be an impression that you're creating with your art.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with that, then I'm sure you know this as well. You can create something and you could have as many people as you want. Because I've had that happen to me, like in live performance music. People blow smoke up your ass, but it's not. If you're not feeling it and you're not actually feeling that response from yourself, it doesn't really matter what anybody else has said to you about it.
But if you're feeling what you're doing, and it's derived from other people that have been involved in the work that you're doing, like you're feeling something you're doing and it's being amplified by someone else, or someone else, and that thing is coming to light, you're getting recognition for that thing. Is that thing really true to you, or are you just thriving off the fact that someone else is being influenced by your art and it's becoming to light through that? Like, are you ever really going to be satisfied by something that you can produce that is reliant on others to be able to put the tick next to the box?
But some people are happy with that, though. Like, I'm not saying that I'm a complete band person or a complete artist person. I'm just saying that you don't necessarily always need to be particularly in music, you don't always need to be in the driver's seat in order for your contribution to feel like it was significant to yourself or to others.
Yeah.
Because if it was like that, then there wouldn't be any bands, because nobody would form together, because it would just be egos clashing against each other because you want your own representation all the time. And I understand that it's important to like have the complete picture of your own contribution to whatever, whether you put it for yourself or to a band or whatever. But
you just want your idea driven, by others,
by something or by something. It doesn't even need to be by. It doesn't necessarily need to be by others. I think that's what's getting lost in this. I'm not necessarily waiting for a band scenario. It's just that sometimes when the individual work is pushed towards somebody else that understands where you're coming from, that can push it back into your court, and then you can push it back out into the public, you know? Like, having it fine-checked / understood by somebody who understands the emotional feelings of having something you've created put forward is massive, right? Like, having those little conversations with other musicians or other artists or whatever are, like, hugely significant. And that's... I feel like a lot of my time up until now has been getting that from other people, because I didn't get that in a developmental stage when I was younger, because I was in a box, because I didn't produce an instrument. I didn't produce music with an instrument. I produced music with a voice, or with acting or a sound or something like that. And like, I don't want to be somebody that's like blaming other groups of people, because that's not how it is. But it took me a while to find my feet in terms of the people that I was comfortable with being artistic with, or being musical with. So I'm sure you found that as well, because we came from the same group of we grew up in the same area with the same group of friends, etc., etc. There's something to be said about having the incubation of a group of people that are creative around you, that push you to want something for yourself.
Absolutely.
That's what's still brewing now, and it's still there. It's just like, I need to be in the environment to fully flesh the music to a state that I'd want it to be. Really, like, I wouldn't want to release it in a demo form. Like, I could. Some people do put things out on SoundCloud and in demo forms and stuff, and that's fine. That's their decision. I don't have anything against that. But I prefer my first representation of whatever I created to be finer tuned, and having other musicians contribute to that is helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I need to pee again. I'm sorry. Oh, actually,
This son of a bitch. Huh? This guy and his bladder. You know?
Okay, Luna, it's your turn.
Alright. You ask me questions, man. I'm gonna ask you a question, dog.
Go ahead.
What's going on with your art? When can we expect another exhibition?
Oh, yeah. That does put me on the spot. I've been... Oh, God. I want to do it. I'm waiting for the right place, I guess.
I see.
Yeah. I'm waiting for someone to come with me with the answer. No, I have got some places in mind. I've been trying to figure out how to negotiate with these people, how to do something with the space that they can offer to me. So, what?
Is it? I want to say online. I want to say it, but
Olga, yeah.
yeah.
No,
I was gonna say it, but I was like, should I? I don't know.
I really like the space that they have there. I really like Justin. He's a really nice guy.
40% commission.
I'm not sure what the commission is, and we probably shouldn't establish that. But it's a really nice space that they have there. It's not huge, but it's something I could work with.
What other spaces are there
Well,
that you could actually realistically? Are there any like new spaces?
that's the problem with Dunedin is that I'm finding it's hard to actually come to actually find out what places I can use in that capacity. There is a space on Princess Street that I'm quite interested in, which is where the subway is. And it's right next to like the Turkish place there. There's like
the subway is.
There's DOS and there's subway and then there's like
Oh
a
yeah,
building.
the learning development center, the downstairs part.
Yeah.
The part where they always have the Fringe Festival exhibitions.
No, but on the other side of the street. Other side of the street. There's like
No. I don't mean where the Fringe Festival office is. Next to the Night and Day. You mean like right next to Dust and Subway, yeah? Yeah. They it's like an empty space, and whenever there's a Fringe Festival, they have like random ass exhibitions in there.
Oh, okay.
The
They had like
Dunedin Dream brokerage is in there a lot of the time.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that space is cool. And I have seen an art exhibition in there as of the last 6 months, maybe. And they had like a African.
Yeah. I think that was for the Fringe Festival or
Yeah.
for something.
I never checked that out.
You know
but
where
there's
they need to
something in
make a space, I reckon, is the Fortune Theatre.
there.
Or they need to do something with the Fortune Theatre because
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
fucking big old waste space. Sammy's as well.
Yeah.
But there's been a
that's
whole
just
bunch
something,
of
isn't it?
there's been a whole bunch of appeals to the council about what to do with Sammy's. I think there was a submission to make it into like a theatre space, like a single use theatre space, but I don't think it was approved because the council was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of other places to have theatre and whatever.
Right.
And so they're like, well, why don't you make like a the guy Scott Muir, who used to own, he's kind of Dunedin, he's the manager of the Chills, he's on the Vogel Street Party Committee with me. He used to own Refuel and stuff.
Right.
He made a submission to them to be like, turn it into a multi-purpose, like make it a venue again, but also like seatless so that you can turn it into like a theatre stage. You can turn it into like an art exhibition gallery, a fashion place, whatever. I don't know how it's going. I don't think it's going very well.
Yeah, I'm not involved in that so much, but I don't know. For something that I'd want to do, I think that I honestly, it's hard. I don't really know where to go. There's a couple of spaces in town that I've been to exhibitions and I've quite enjoyed the space, and I've quite enjoyed the just the general environment and I suppose aesthetic of the building, which has been nice, but nothing that I've really, jumped for joy at, I suppose. Olga would be one that I would like to support, just in terms of a gallery that is available and a space that I could really put something into. But unfortunately, it's not a very big space. So
Is that place in the Cromwell building still like opposite across the road from Bloke? It's like a next to the Harcourt or the Edinburgh, the Harcourt's whatever it is.
the artist gallery.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's called. Yeah.
Is that a place, or is that kind of like a bit snooty?
I'm not sure. I've never spoken to anyone involved in that space. I've often walked past it and thought that is quite nice.
I think
but
I
I've
remember
never
it.
been inside.
I think I remember hearing from people being like they do, like they have quite a steep commission, and that they also aren't big on having people they don't know there.
Right.
But like they could go for any art gallery really. What about the Blue Oyster art space?
Yeah,
What are they
yeah,
like?
I'm very interested.
I feel
in
like
that
they
space
do
as
different
well.
things.
Yeah, I feel like Blue Oyster is definitely a space that I could feel like I could fit some work into. But I think the premise of what the Blue Oyster Gallery does is more involved around how they can involve themselves with the artists.
Yeah.
Rather than having.
But are you against
rather
that?
than being like, this is a space for you to
Exhibition.
exhibit. This is like, how can we work with you to develop a theme or an idea? I'm definitely not opposed to that idea. But the reality for me at the moment is that I have X amount of work that kind of just needs to be exhibited.
Not
And
collabed on.
kind of needs to be done this year. I feel like I'm at a point with my work where it needs to be put forward.
Yeah.
I don't have time to work on
create it.
anything new now, at least this year. If there was something that popped up next year and there was a concept at hand, I would potentially be intrigued with that, but I would still feel like I need to accomplish something now.
Are there online gallery spaces that you can just like? Are there? Because I know that Caitlin and Jonas, the owners of Adieu, they were looking at making another business selling art online. Right? Is there a? Have you ever heard of people in Dunedin or New Zealand having connects to post art online, like internationally or within New Zealand? Like, because I was apart from your own stuff. Excuse me. Apart from your own stuff. Yeah, like, is there like an artist collective website or like anybody that is known for exhibiting or displaying people's artwork? I feel like the art community would have a whole bunch of places for obscure artists to go, but maybe they don't.
I think that living in where we live does restrict us a wee bit. I wasn't really.
Does it matter for online,
I
though?
wasn't really too aware of what was available to an artist in Dunedin up until recently, until I had someone that had stayed here for a while and lived with me, to be able to commute with that person and discover what was actually available to someone in any given city. And this person that I had spoken to that had stayed with me, we were obviously talking about what they were doing in Auckland at the time, and that was honestly pretty eye-opening, because what they were displaying to me was something that it was really not unheard of, because I can understand the concept, but not something was ever actually put forward to me as a Dunedin artist, I suppose, or something
Yeah.
that was available.
This
Obviously,
is
it's something
Auckland's
that's
like 12 different cities put together.
yeah, and obviously that concept is understandable, and I can get on board with that easy enough. But that thing is not something that is in the general sphere of what is
Available.
to a Dunedin artist. So that concept appeals to me definitely. I just feel like I would have to. I hate to use the word network, but I feel like I would have to sort of somewhat network with people more that are, I suppose, invested or are in the same stratosphere of what I'm doing as an artist, because I feel like what I'm doing, and I hate to say this because it can be construed in many different ways, but I feel like what I'm doing as an artist, or what I'm doing as a painter, is reasonably unique. It's definitely drawn from different points of
Aspects,
interest,
yeah.
aspects, like it's derived from something. But what I'm doing as a whole is reasonably separate, partially unique to what else is happening in Dunedin.
Yeah.
So I feel like my art could be pushed or presented in different places in different capacities, which would be more broadly accepted, which I'm definitely open to. But I also feel like I need to push my art into the sphere that it is in now.
You know what we need to do? We need to go up to. Obviously, we need to work within the Dunedin community. Obviously, I'm a very Dunedin community proud person. Don't get me wrong. But we need to take a trip to Wellington or Auckland or both, and take a portfolio of all your work, and see if you can even just. You don't even need to be there, because people people have art displays down here in Auckland, Wellington, and they're not there, I feel like it'd be a good idea to go on just on a holiday. You just take a portfolio of stuff with you, because I go up to Wellington and Auckland every year, at least once or twice, and just take a whole bunch of stuff with you and just be like, go walk around and have a little find dabbly dozy around these artists and just see what they're up to, because it doesn't hurt to get your stuff out there anyway, even if you're just getting your name in there so that the people meet you and they're like, that was interesting, even if they don't have the capacity to have you there immediately or whatever, which would be I feel like you would be able to find some places up there. Even then you can still have the connection when you come down here, and then you can use them as a reference point for negotiating with other people down here, because that's what a lot of that shit is about. Like, from my working experience with obviously different fields, more in the business sector, but like still my experience with that stuff is like, if you have the ability to draw other people in, they can be big influences to other people in Dunedin,
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's definitely room for expansion.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how to address that. I do want to break sort of there's definitely a general consensus when it comes to art and what is good art in Dunedin. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure out what
that
good
is.
art means.
Yeah.
What that is.
That's like the music thing as well.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, it's just understanding that what you do is good art. Like, if you can understand what it is that you do, and you can understand the end result of what you produce, and it makes sense to you, that in itself is good art. But to me, like, I want to be able to produce this idea of something that is just a bit further than what people expect, and a wee bit further than what people, at least in Dunedin, like, not to put New Zealand in a box, but to put Dunedin specifically in a box. I feel like there's more that can be understood within our community, and like we have a big music scene. And I feel like whatever is distributed within the music scene in Dunedin is broadly accepted and understood. But in terms of the art community, I feel like that is reasonably limited. Like, there's definitely a couple of people here and there that will understand what you're doing, but generally speaking, people want to see a certain style of art. People want to see a certain style of projection and just general understanding of what a painting is. And I feel like I can produce a certain idea, but that idea is not really accepted or consumed by the wider community that we have in Dunedin. So I feel like what I want to project needs to be projected in a different space, though I want to stay where I am because it makes sense to me, and I'm able to create what I want to create here because I can. And not that I couldn't in another space. But you'd have to work harder to do it. I would have to work harder. I would have to literally physically move everything that I have to a different space, which is time consuming and emotionally exhausting. Yeah, exhausting is the word I'm looking for. But I just want people to look, like, I feel like and now I can speak in it to New Zealand as a whole. I feel like what New Zealand consumes in the art world is more specific to the individual, which is important, but that individual is more looking at something that is relative to them on the initial side of their perspective, if that makes sense. Like, if someone from New Zealand typically is looking at a piece of art, they are looking at that piece and they're trying to relate that immediate thing to them. Like, they're looking at a landscape piece or a forestry piece of art, whether it's photography or painting. They're looking at that piece and going, okay, that relates to me in this way because I associate a part of my life to my environment, or to this is a place that I have been, this is a place that I have seen, and it is meaningful to me. And that is fine. That is absolutely fine. But it's limited. Fine. But it's limited. Yeah. And it doesn't cover a huge base. But because New Zealand is pretty separate from what the art world can offer, that is what people perceive art to be.
Yeah.
So talking to any given person, especially on, how do I say this delicately, a higher end of the age spectrum, will typically view
Boomers.
art in a specific
Boomers.
way. Like I will talk to people of a certain age bracket or a certain demographic that will associate art to a certain thing, and that's usually something that's sentimental.
Yeah, yeah.
And that makes sense, but it's
an
in
Anglo
a
thing.
different sense than what I'm trying to put forward, which is a sense of pure emotion in the given time or point of viewing the art, as opposed to a historical
like a nostalgic influenced,
thing, you know.
like a not looking at something for like a whole and the layers of its whole.
My parents have recently bought a piece of artwork that is sentimental to them because one individual has been in that specific environment at one given point in time, and they can relate some sort of emotional thing to that painting because they've literally been in that environment. What I want to present. And not to say that this isn't present, it's just in a very, very small demographic.
Yeah.
It's something that is more obscure and
But
something that is derived, something that brings forward an emotion that is not necessarily present in someone's forethought, but something that someone can actually something that can bring out something within someone
that they
is
didn't
more than
recognize that they
something
had.
That is literal, something that is beyond more
Representative of something that they can't conceive.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. But that's I guess that's the struggle, isn't it? It's like with any sort of visual or audio content. It's like people are happy to watch The Big Bang Theory or 2.5 Men because it's providing an immediate release or an immediate sort of relatable content, regardless of how much depth it contains. Whereas if you were to show somebody like The Wire or The Sopranos, they'd be like, I'm not interested because it's going to take me 10 episodes to get into this. It's the same thing with art appreciation and music appreciation, and not to go into the realms of douchery and be like, you need to expose yourself to this to understand it, but that's the whole part of it, isn't it? It's like that's the whole reason that art communities and music communities exist, is because it's like anybody can conceivably look at a piece of art or a piece of music and understand it at some level, but you're looking for a group of people that can understand it and also prompt you to want to create more of it because you feel like they understand the levels and the essence of what you're trying to convey with it. Yeah, and unfortunately that's just because shit's finite, that's why places like New York became the hub of arts and culture and music, because it's like the only way to create as many infinite scenarios in which people can understand art or culture is to create as fucking many of those scenarios as possible, and therefore you get a complex of 20 million people because you need to be able to go in every which direction. And sometimes you can form that, you can create that anywhere. You just have to create it.
Yeah.
Which is the most annoying part about it, is especially when you're not someone who's in their 20s, you can't control that. You just have to play the game until you get to decide the game, basically.
Yeah.
And the key to it is to try to remember this feeling now when you're 45.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to become the person. And I feel like in the art scene, that is something that's actually like people who are fans of art and understand art tend to hold on to, and same with music, tend to hold on to that throughout their lives. They just happen to be in the minority of people because it represents something more important to them than it might do to the average Joe Blow. You just have to fucking try harder to find those people. It's the most frustrating element of it.
Definitely. And they are there. You just have to
find out where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you need to make that impression with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why that's why everybody develops. That's why you go to you might go to gigs that are when you're first starting out that you wouldn't be caught dead at now, because that was your ins to developing your palette and discovering that those people exist. You just have to go through the trials and tribulations of not fucking being satiated initially because you're being frustrated because these people don't exist, and then you go out there and you're like, well, fuck, these people actually do exist. Like, that's why you find places like obviously it's different in bigger cities, they have it too, but like places like the Crown that still exists, you know, it's like that. It's the same element. It's like the people that own the Crown and often attend gigs of the Crown, they give a fuck about it because they feel it's important to their being. But you wouldn't see anybody under 20 going there, you know, unless they were performing or they had a mature perspective on like how important that element is to them. And that's why everything's so frustrating. That's why fucking politics is so frustrating. It's because it's often like the court of people who have lost the element, the ability to be in touch with that feeling anymore, and they think they are, but they're not, you know. And that's why the art would frustrate me a lot, is because it's like, you know, I go to some art exhibitions and you see like photography art or like landscape art, which is like, it's all subjective, but it's like, fuck, this piece isn't worth $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. You know, this is a photo that somebody's taken of an inlet that I see every day or I grew up around. You know, like it has a nostalgic value to me, but it's like
people in New Zealand want to see that in their
But
house.
do they?
They do.
But I
If
think
people see something like that, they see a photograph,
But
they
is
see a
it-
painting of something that they resemble to something that is sentimental to them, and they want to have that in their home. They want to see that thing every day.
Or is that all that's introduced into their social circle because that's the element of artistic expression that has continued, because the frustration of not being able to relate anything obscure or more abstract or more deep than that has just rotted their confidence to create anything else. That's
I
like the
agree.
essence of commerciality, right? It's
I mean, that is the truth of it. You know, we haven't been so subjected to art that is perhaps present in a city like New York, like what we speak about, you know. Like art is more like, I think the general concept of what art is in New Zealand is more derived around the fact about that nostalgia aspect. It's like, what can I physically relate something to?
Yeah.
This is a place that I've been,
But
this is a place
is that going to exist anymore though? That's my question. That's my sort of
that's
optimism.
the hope, right?
Yeah, well, that's the optimism for it, isn't it? It's like the future doesn't need to be those elements anymore because we recognize those elements exist in it from a bygone era, from a perspective of people that they want nostalgia, they want comfort, they want nostalgia, and that's probably going to come around as well in some elements in the future. But what does that look like? It doesn't look like rural New Zealand anymore. I don't feel like it's going to look like that anymore. It might in some locations or some sort of aspects of society, but our generation and the generations that are coming in front of us, that's not going to be the representation of their New Zealand. Like, I like to think that because of like the global interaction that's happening, is that like pieces like this, they'll only exceed in value, you know, like it, whether it's monetary value, which doesn't really matter in the long run, or actual like sentimental value, you know, like the same sentiment that you think is applied to a landscape picture could be to me like 40 years from now, what would happen if I saw that in an op shop or at a gallery, and I was like, fuck, I remember seeing that when I was young, and like that's sentiment to me, that's nostalgia. So I don't think it has to be the same way. It's going to suck until it is a different way.
Yeah.
That's kind of just how it is, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just fucking frustrating because that's just how it is.
Yeah.
The same way as like, you know, home ownership nowadays. Like obviously, I personally believe that there's, a lot more that could be done for everybody in New Zealand to live better lifestyles and live more fulfilling lifestyles and live in a more interactively successful society. That should be done right now, but it's probably not going to be done right now, and unfortunately we can make the difference now if we really all got our boots on and fucking tried. But the way that the world tracks and the way we look at history is it doesn't happen now. It doesn't happen until we're in our 40s or 50s, And by that point, we might just be burnt out from fucking suffering through all the bullshit
Yeah.
to that point, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I don't like to think that way because, fuck it, like, you know, materials aren't everything anyway. I mean, I can say that because I got them, but
Yeah. Yeah, I believe in that too, but there's also a point of needing a roof over your head, you know? There's a point of getting to a place in life where you need to have a house of your own. You need to have something that's relative to you.
well, I'm personally getting to the point where, like, if there weren't so many external aspects to politics, like if there weren't so many optics sides of things, like having to look the right way or be from a particular culture or be subservient to every single social group. And I don't mean that in a negative way or in a like I don't believe that certain groups should have their say, because I do. But if there was the ability of human beings now to just ignore the face of what's being presented to them and understand the core values of what people need in New Zealand and all the shit that's going wrong, and put all that aside, put identity politics aside, then I'd get into politics and like on a serious level, like on an actual, would consider attempting to be in the local electorate or at the parliamentary level. And as I got older, but I just can't deal with that other element of it, like the just frustrating, you have to look this way or you have to be considering every group at every point, and if you don't, then all of a sudden that's a mark against your name, you know? Like, I understand that sometimes there's a lot of biases that politicians have inherently, but I don't think it's a negative trait of all of them that they're not always considering every group all the time. There's no human being that's ever existed, even like people like Mahatma Gandhi, they had their flaws. Fucking Florence Nightingale had their flaws. Mother Teresa had their flaws. People have flaws. That's why they're human beings, and that's why you shouldn't idolize politicians, you know? And if we could separate from that and actually make some change for New Zealand, that sounds broad and generic, and people will be like, Liam's fucking yammering on. But we have so much knowledge of all the shit that's going wrong in New Zealand from a basic level that's not ideologically based at all, you know? Homelessness is not an ideology thing. That's not a left-wing or a right-wing thing. That's not a thing at all. Income inequality is not a left-wing or a right-wing thing at all. These are basic. Education, healthcare, they're so basic. Like, the fact that if you have one view on it, you're left-wing, you have another view on it, you're right-wing, is completely fucked, you know, in the same way that the whole coronavirus thing became politicized. It's a disease. It's a fucking airborne disease that nobody had any control over, yet the first thing people did was blame this political group, blame that political group. You know, left-wingers want us to wear our masks. Fuck that. It's all about personal liberty, you know. Right-wingers are going to infect us all, yada, yada. It's like, we seriously need to fix some shit ASAP, or we won't even be able to be the people who are fat cats in our 40s and 50s and get to change shit. Like, that's how bad it's actually going to get in the next 10 years. Like, it's pretty gnarly shit, you know? When you think about the actual state of the globe and the shit that's immediately important, you know, like, our world war isn't a world war. It's like a war for the world.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like the consumerism that we've all been brought up on is going to fucking end the world. Like, it's pretty intense, and lots of people don't want to deal with it, and that's why it hasn't been dealt with.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the truth of the whole matter, really, isn't
I
it?
think a lot of people are looking at their own lives as something that is short-lived in the grand scheme of things, and are living life to the fullest. Like,
Yeah.
there's now the age of
Of people that can deal with it.
what do you call it? Somethingism. There's a word for it.
Consumerism.
No. Hedonism.
Right. Yeah, well, 100%. But it's in a different way, isn't it? It's like a live through your phone, live through representing what you have. It's like a post on your Instagram story, have fucking 10 Instagram stories every day
Yeah.
to ignore all these issues. Like, obviously that's simplifying in a lot of ways, but I just find it really strange how, like, some of the things that would have seriously outraged the world, like seriously caused conflict from a moral perspective, they're just gone. They're just fully, like, they're not really. Nobody feels like whether it's capitalism or desire for money or desire for comfort, have just completely swept away people's morals for what is actually fucked up in the world. You know, like organ harvesting in China, concentration camps of Uyghur Muslims in China, like that's the shit that started wars. That fully started wars like less than 30 years ago. It's just like, we don't care anymore. Like, we all know that it's almost like we're being raised on this, like, just negativity that the world is just heading into this tailspin. It's like, get it while it lasts. Fucking, some of you are going to have kids because you're not thinking about it because it's like a biological imperative to have kids. Some of you aren't having kids because you're fucking frightened of having children because you don't want to leave them in the world that we're going to give them, you know? Like,
Well, that's a lot
grim.
of what parenting looks like at the moment is not bringing kids into the world because you don't want to see how their lives lived out in the world that is inevitable.
That's fully why I like, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not in like a committed long-term relationship or anything, but like, fuck, that's definitely driving my thought process on a lot of things. Like, I wouldn't want to put a child in the world where like their education that's something that's really fascinating to me, is like, how is the early development of a whole bunch, like hundreds of millions of people on the planet that had what they thought was a pretty solid concept of their upbringing, say from 5 to 8 years old, and then all of a sudden this fucking pandemic thing happens where you're just inside and away from your friends, and all these fucking norms in society change within a year, and then you got to live the rest of your life after that. Like, it fucks people up. Like, that's what led to a lot of the problems that the world had now from like the Great Depression. You know, so many people survived the Great Depression, so many people didn't. And the people that survived, a lot of the motivation that drove the rest of their life was, I'm never going to be poor again, or I'm never going to be reliant on money again, or I'm never going to let my family no longer have these possessions again. And that drove fucking 50 years of consumerism, you know? Like, what is the next 20 or 30 years going to be like if these people are having, like, interruptions of this kind for the future, you know? It's like these crazy-ass climate events. They're fucking nuts. They had 35-degree temperatures in the Arctic Circle. That was the most they'd ever had. They had a 24-degree day in Antarctica. Like, that's fucking insane. That's a summer day in Dunedin. Like, that's fucking nuts. Like, the fact that it's just sort of like, oh, that's sad, and then the 15-minute news cycle is just onto something else. It's like,
that's it, right? That's what the news essentially is. It's like, here's the information, you interpret it, and now it's gone.
And then it's gone, yeah.
You know, unless there's something that's absolutely detrimental to the individual at any given time, no one's really.
But even the things that are detrimental to the individual, like that is detrimental to an individual. It's just,
but no one
in the long game, yeah. It's just like it's not taking food out of your mouth.
Yeah.
It's not punching you in the face when you open the door to go to work. Like but it's going to. It's going to. It's like, you know, it's. I think people they've just been bombarded with it. Yeah. They've just been bombarded with it, and it's like, you know, do you catch more flies with, you know, what's the saying? You catch more flies with sugar than with vinegar or some shit like that, you know? It's like to give them more like sweet, uplifting news. Like, we can do, like, I almost feel like there needs to be an alternative that does that, you know? Like, I know a lot of people are trying, like, this is uplifting, like, people are going out and doing this, but some motherfucking billionaire, somebody needs to find a way to make money out of making people happy and not out of making
Jeff
people
Bezos
miserable.
Stop sending spaceships into space.
Well, fuck
and
that.
put money into the fucking
into integrity, but that dude doesn't give a fuck. Fuck that guy. You know? Honestly. Fuck all of that shit.
It's doing too much with something that's already there.
Well, it's like, we'll probably end this soon, but I highly, out of interest, a really, 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 really good case study of what I saw of like what you can get away with if you're a billionaire. Look up Richard Branson's interview with Conan O'Brien in like it's either the late 90s or the early 2000s, right? And Salma Hayek is the other guest. So this is when Salma Hayek is like she's in her prime. You know, she's a very attractive lady. This dude's got billions of dollars. He's like borderline coked out, or he's just on that like billionaire like euphoria where he's like, I've won the game. It doesn't even fucking matter anymore. He's just like, he's fully just groping her the whole interview, and he's like, it's fully like if he did it now, he's done. He's Weinstein. He's finished. You know, and those guys, they have so much money. Like they have so much money that it doesn't matter. Like it fully doesn't even matter. You know, they can just go into space now, and they can just fuck off up there for a couple $100 million cost them. You know, a couple billion, whatever. They come back down. What do? What did Jeff Bezos or Richard Branson really do the other couple of days? You know, it's cooked shit. It's really cooked shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just funny when you look at someone like Jeff Bezos, and you know, you get to that point in life when you've made so much money and you want to invest in, like if it's your passion and you want to invest in space, sweet, make a rocket ship, send that shit up, see what the fuck happens. But look at your wealth. Dude is the wealthiest man on the planet.
Yeah.
That's a fact now. Like, he is the wealthiest man on this planet. The wealthiest known man, I should say, on the planet.
Yeah.
And he's sending metal up into space. You know, like, I don't want this to open up a wormhole, but it's like, you know,
too late, brother.
You're doing something that's already being done. How much? Oh God, this is a huge wormhole. I do want to get into something like this, but you know,
we can keep it brief. We can cut a whole bunch of shit out of this anyway.
You're sending stuff into space that like someone is already doing. Do you have to do this now with the trillions of dollars that you have? Can that not be put into something else?
Yeah.
Like the amount of shit that's going down in America that you be putting your money towards, like homelessness or fucking.
I don't give a fuck. It doesn't make them richer.
I don't have the ideas on top of my head, but
no, I know what you mean though.
That it can be.
That's the stuff. That's the whole reason though. The whole incentive. The whole purpose of America was incentivize people to get rich.
Yeah.
And once you get rich, the whole incentive is to keep other people poor. To keep other people poorer than you. That's the whole problem with the United States. Poor people idolize rich people because that's where they want to be, so that they're no longer poor.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I want to be rich so that I can. Like in some cases, it definitely is, but in the majority of cases, it's not like I want to be rich so that I can lift all these other people up. It's I want to be rich so that I can fucking fire all the people that swirled me in the toilets or lock me in a locker. I want to be able to fuck their wives and make them lose their jobs. Like that's what the United States was built on, you know?
Yeah.
And like it's fucked up. It's fully fucked up. And the United States is just like a social experiment, just gone off in so many different tangents, you know?
Yeah. And the weird reality of someone like Jeff Bezos is that who in the hell needs that much money? No one needs that much money.
No, we know who the real
even to like define who your family is, or like bring your family like a decent upbringing.
How many generations? It's like 1,000 generations.
Is that going to cover? Like that's insane.
Until the world ends.
And you want to send shit into space? Like sweet bro, that really helps everyone.
You know what's fucked about it, man? Is people always like. They talk about lizard people. You know, they talk about like a cabal of lizard people that are ruling the world. You know who the real lizard people are? The people around Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
The people who are like, have just echo chambered him to the top. Like, can you imagine the insincerity on the people that are dealing with him every day? His like, the servants in his house, his wife, his friends. Like, there's no way that they could truly admire him. They'd be in fear of him. They'd be like, it'd be fucked. It'd be fully fucked. I don't actually understand how a lot of these people like don't commit suicide. Like I know it sounds intense, but like the feeling of isolation that you must have. Like I know you got millions and trillions of dollars, but there's no way that Jeff Bezos isn't aware of how many people hate his guts. Like there's no way. There's no way that he wouldn't know that. Like same with Elon Musk.
There's a whole fucking sphere of people that have fully against what he's doing. Like,
No.
no,
Vocally.
Absolutely.
Vocally.
No one's going like,
Yeah, boy, let's put fucking mosh in this.
But there is though. That's the sad thing, is there's so many people that all he would have had to do is add it. He gets a pen and just adds an extra zero to their salary. You know? He goes, they might be like, really tentatively, Mr. Bezos, I don't think we should spend $500 million on this. He's like, oh, how much is your salary? Oh, just, you want another $1 million every year? Oh, sweet, man. I'll just add an extra zero. And he's like, oh, yeah. Actually, no, fuck that shit, bro. You send that metal cock rocket up into the air, brother. You know? Honestly. Jesus Christ. Jesus.
That's the sad reality, isn't it? Anyway, fuck. We should wrap this up.
Yeah, we've been talking for almost 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's what I love. I wanted this. I wanted this fucking long.
We got a really big shoe. Really big.
That's been good. Thanks for coming here, man. This is fun.
Ciao, brother.
This is what I want to do. This is the kind of podcast that is fun for me. I'm fucking drunk.
Yeah, I'm fucking wasted, eh? This is like definitely. We've had some drinks before. We've done some shit on this.
From day one, I've been like, I want to have some drinks on the podcast, and we've finally done it. I feel like this has been good.
Is that hole there? Is that where the telly used to be?
Yeah, I used to have the curtain on some wall that I built, and I'd put the TV there, and there's a big hole.
I just figured out there because I was looking there. I was like, there used to be a telly there.
It's super inviting.
Yeah.
Important.
Inviting. It's like a glory hole, but in a curtain, just really high up. It's like a glory.
Really inviting.
It's like a glory hole for like a 7-foot
go
man.
there, you get the pleasure.
All right,
cool, man.
signing out.
Thanks for coming here.
All right,
I love you.
love you, too, brother.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Home Audio Entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down, relax, enjoy the music.